So, hello everyone, Ryu here. I want to make another video about Totally Not Mark. I didn't think I was going to make the video this rapidly, whatever, but a lot of stuff happened immediately yesterday. So I made my first video about Totally Not Mark with the whole Toei thing and so on, 150 claims, etc. Right? Yesterday morning for me, where I live, and then roughly half a day or so later, he took down his second video, right? Made a third video and so on. So I think it really speaks to what I said in my first video, of course, links below for that, where I was like, well, the second video probably makes him liable and definitely weakens his own case, right? In both fair use court and also just generally in court. So that's why in my second video, it's a long video, but again, check it out if you haven't seen it yet, if you're interested in my opinion, but from a legal and like mostly business standpoint. But my point mostly was like, don't do this kind of video. Talk to a lawyer first, get legal aid, get business aid before a lawyer would never, allow this kind of video to be published, right? I've had some great discussion in the comment section, I felt, that also made me think. That's why I brought out my favorite waifu of Dragon Ball, of course, 818. So I'm talking a little bit about the comments and so on, generally speaking, stuff that I have been thinking about more so since I'm reading people's comments, right? Because, of course, I didn't bring out all my reflecting and ideas about yesterday with Mark, and then some things, when I was like, oh yeah, it's a good point, right? And I'm like, yeah, so I'm gonna take some later in the video. I'm gonna go into some of the comments and some of my other reflections, and also, of course, especially also some of the racism, right? That we see how people are hating now on the Japanese culture and community, right? So that's about this as well, I feel. But first of all, let's see go on the legal standpoint, right? And again, then in my first video, my main point was, of course, to get legal aid, get business aid, right? Don't this kind of video, slow down. Think about what you're saying. You have to be very, very explicit, right, in a legal setting to not get yourself issues, right. And I think, generally speaking, the best comment, sorry, but not a good comment, but the best comment was from Aguene, sorry I butchered that name, weird spelled name, that wrote, just, I'm an attorney, and we always tell our people, right, it's like, you shut up. Yeah, never say anything. That's what I said too, right. Honestly, that's kind of the TLDR version of my video is like, shut up, honestly, right? And I understand people that are Mark's fan are going to be, oh, don't tell it to... Like, from a legal standpoint, you always tell your client, never talk to anyone unless you have to, right? Never go outside and do anything that can make you have a weaker case. The cliche thing that you hear people are saying, Law and Order, these kind of TV shows, that's like, everything you say can be used, everything you say can and will be used against you in that court. That kind of typical saying, right? And there's a different version of that saying. But of course, the basic whole point is that no matter what you say, right, we're gonna try to, use it against you, right? And that, of course, is kind of my main point of my first video, where I'm just like, but why are you saying that word for? Because if I read that correctly, this could mean this thing. This could imply that thing. This weakens that thing, right? And again, as I said in the video yesterday, like, I really dislike how the Japanese are very conservative. They're very anti-fair use, and generally speaking, they're very like, I'll say, they kind of it's unmodernized, right? In many aspects, there's a fax machine. I've been there a lot, so when you do like an interview for a job or whatever, right, it's very, very specific. Like, simply one thing they do is that they hire people kind of like when the university is kind of over and got out of school, and they have like this big hiring periods, right? And while it's true that other companies do the same thing too in like America and Europe as well, it's like a very weird thing in Japan. It's like we're only hiring people in like March or something. Yeah, like that could be a case for some of the companies. They're like, we're only hiring people in this month. So for example, I had an interview with Capcom, the fighting, for example, fighting games and so on, right? And I wasn't in Japan at the time, and they were like, oh, you want to have this job? I was like, yeah, I'm interested. I had an interview, on Skype and so on, right? And they were like, okay, but you have to get here in March. And I was like, okay, sure, like next week, basically. They're like, and I was like, okay, it might be hard for me because of, my life and this thing. I have to fly there, to get back to Japan, etc., right? And they were like, we're only gonna have interviews this week. Yeah, they were basically like, if you want this job, you need to be here in like March 10 to March 17, right? You can't come 18, you can't have the interview after those dates. I was like, okay, and you can't have them before either. You need to have the interview in this time span. And one of these days, that's the only time we will meet you in real life, basically. And I was like, Okay, yeah, so that is very much how Japan is, right? They are like, this is when you have to come for an interview and so on. So it's kind of crazy, right? Given in any other, basically, cultural context, most companies, for example, in America would be like, yeah, of course you have to have a time frame, like when you can have an interview or whatever, but it wouldn't be like, if you can't come on before the 17th or after whatever, you can't get the job. It would be like, oh, so you can't make it to the, whatever, yeah. Let's have it then, 21 then or whatever. Yeah, they wouldn't be like, you never get the job. Yeah, they would be like, they probably would try to adjust it a bit, right? Which it depends on what job you have and up in the hierarchy or whatever, right? The higher up you are in the hierarchy, the easier it is, of course, to, so to speak, go outside and scope up. And that's, of course, also true for Japan, right? So usually in Japan, this notion here, if you're applying for a job kind of high up, right, like director kind of up there, then you actually can maybe go past the system, and especially depending on the company and so on. But certainly like a lower entry level, it's like, this is when we have entry level interviews, yeah, and so on. So that's very Japan. And I understand people then are disliking Japan or whatever, Japanese people, for the whole marketing and so on. But reality is still, unfortunately, reality, right? And that's a huge part that I want to discuss in my second video, or this video, whatever, but his second video, where I'm just like, I see a lot of these comments, right, that are addressing the whole like, oh, stupid Japanese people, whatever. But that is, for me, a very, I'm people gonna be angry now at Mark fans being here, but it's a very childish aspect of it, and also probably racist. But even ignoring the whole like whatever racism, whatever, right? The whole concept of this culture is wrong. I wanted to make it in my culture, right? That is a very, very childish opinion. So now I probably piss a lot of people off here, but that's just reality, guys. Because if, as I wrote to one of the comments, you have to, accept the world you are living in. Right? You have to understand the context matters. You have to understand what situation you are in, especially from a legal standpoint, as I kept saying in my first video. And like, even if you hate the system, right? Even if you hate, like, again, I'm not a fan of, Toei's, in general, as I mentioned in the first video, Japanese company, because Toei is not even the worst. Again, Toei is not the worst Japanese anime company. Far from it. They didn't even give any strikes, right? If you can review that, they only go in claims. Only. But I mean, in comparison, he could have got like 300 strikes, like, that's good, yes. I mean, like Science Scholar got, yeah, like, it could be worse, right? So, and as I said in my first video too, that I and many other people that has done anime stuff and so on, right, they usually get strikes. So, already there, Toei is playing nice in comparison. But regardless of that, right, you have to, and I make this video here and speaking then to some of, I guess, Mark's fans, but also people in general, right? You have to understand the system you are inside of, right? You don't have to love the system, you can hate the system, and you can fight the system, right? You can fight the system. You can be a rebel, you can do whatever you want, right? I have what is called the rebel gene, so I really hate authority, for example, right? So if you look at the personality traits, and I work a lot with this when you break down personalities and you do big data and so on, right? And my personality trait is like debater, if you go to my bigs, right? But I talk a lot. But also I have an incredibly like anti-authority personality trait. So I have a very hard time being, in like being in the military. Like I must do, or yeah, I'm gonna follow my own stuff, yeah, so on like that. So I absolutely understand and I can relate, right, again, to Mark and so on and where he's coming from, right? But just because you want to be a rebel or whatever, doesn't mean you should be a rebel in the dumbest way possible. And that might be harsh. That's saying that in that sense, right? Sounds very, very negative. But as I said yesterday, in a legal sense, the second video was incredibly stupid. It was incredibly so. And as I said yesterday, the word, as the other people used the word too, right? For me, as I said, was bizarre. When I watched the second video, I know I already made a video about it, but again, it's bizarre because you're watching it and you're thinking like, how can this help you in a legal setting, right? How can this help you? This can only make it worse for you. Don't make this kind of video. And of course, that's why I'm making a second video here, because he then removed that video, right? And I am not surprised. That's of course why I'm here talking about it again, right? Because I'm like, yeah, that's exactly, as I said yesterday morning, what I expect to happen, right? I expect his second video to be removed by himself when he realizing how, how bad that video makes him look, right, in a legal setting, right? And so that what happened, right? And that's why we kind of here, right? And also talk about the general stuff again, but I feel that's kind of where I'm coming to mostly. I'm like, yeah, that video is gonna go down, right? Because why would you have that video up? It just makes you look worse, again, in a legal and business standpoint. I understand that morality speaking, as I said yesterday, he's right. From a moral standpoint, he's correct. From an emotional standpoint, which definitely has no value actually in legal sense, but he's right to speak, right? But again, from any kind of measurement of legality, it looks terrible, right? And that's why you shouldn't make the kind of video, as I said yesterday. And then the result yesterday evening makes perfect sense to me, right? So, but I still really want to emphasize here, before I talk about more of the legality, and one thing I definitely noticed with his third video, so we have to read the third video right here, right? The third video is being a black screen thing, right? But, well, again, I just want to point this out then. You have to fight the system in the best way possible, right? You can be a crazy rebel or whatever, but he could have done exactly what he did, but he could have done it without being like threatening and using intimidation tactics and so on. And of course, then I'll talk about later with more recipes, right? But he could have done it in a more proper Japanese way, right? And one thing I really want to point out here, even though I know people really hate me saying this thing, right? If you're like if you're more fanboys or whatever, right? Or you generally you hate Toei, whatever. And again, I agree that Toei and other anime companies are wrong, but you have to speak to them in their language, right? You have to speak to the person that you are trying to address to in their language. A lot of I have worked with in my life is I usually refer to as a spider in the web, right? Kind of the person negotiating between the other parts, right? And especially when I worked in different like development places, mostly then again in the game industry, where I worked mostly, I've been like a lead game designer, I've been a technical lead and so on, right? And I've been kind of working in that stuff as well. And then after I'm actually publishing and so on, I worked in publishing like Russian games in the MENA region and back and forth and so on, right? But when you're already that kind of positioning, right? Especially I think from like a designer standpoint, game design standpoint, especially technical, as I was lead technical designer a few years ago, you have to really be like able to talk to an artist, and I mean someone that's like art, right? Like a figure, like like a 3D model, or whatever, and say, okay, you're doing that stuff. Okay, what do you need? No, I want this stuff here. And then I have to go over, right, and talk to the coder guys, the developer, the other developers, and talking to them and say, he wants that stuff yet. And what do you need? Oh, you need to be assets like that. You need to run back and forth like this, right? That's like a huge part of having that kind of job, like creative director and so on. You kind of have all these moving parts, right? Because not to take too much about this in this video, but developers, and I mean like programmers mostly, that those tech guys, yeah, they have a very, not all of them of course, but they have a very specific personality. Yeah, they have a kind of common personality traits that are in one way, right? And then the artist people usually are very, very different. These are two kind of disciplines of demographics of people that doesn't have to be different, but they are at a macro level. So you have 100 artists, right? You have 100 programmers, right? I currently work in a project where we are about, we are like 400 people, something involved. It's a huge project. But anyway, so you have a huge, demographic of people, right, in different kind of disciplines. And their behavior is kind of similar per demographic. You need to be able to communicate between these different demographics, right? If you are that person that is doing kind of the spider in the web, I usually do that. So you have to be like, well, he wants that stuff, right? Because if you say exactly what the coder guy tells the artist, they don't understand anything, right? They're gonna be like, well, I don't understand anything. What code? What array? What? They're gonna be like, what are you saying, right? They're gonna not. They won't understand a single word that the coder is saying, right? From a technical standpoint. However, a bigger issue usually, honestly, is that they have a very, again, then different personality traits, especially on a macro level, right? So the way the coder guys are gonna talk to the artist guys, they don't understand it, right? Because they have what we call then different kind of, personality types, right? So if the coder guys are very like, they're very orderly, they're very strict, high consensus and so on, different stuff, right? That they have personality, where artist people are usually more free-spirited, open-minded, right, and so on. I'm having this little here. My point is that they don't communicate in the same way, right? They don't communicate to each other, right, in the same kind of manner. So in this demographic over here, they can all communicate in an effective way together because they're kind of similar, right? And here, they can communicate with each other. But when they can't talk to each other in between, their language is completely unreadable to each other, right? Yeah. This is basically Greek, and this is like, I don't know, Norwegian or whatever, yeah. And when they meet each other, they can't communicate, right? So my job has usually been in my life for many projects I've worked on, both in games and other games, or outside game industry and so on, has been to be the guys like, okay, I speak both Greek and Norwegian, let me translate for you guys in between, because you can't communicate with each other. You guys can't communicate, right? So it's both a level on technical communication, but also communication, right, on actual like personality. You know, when he says that thing, he means that thing, right? Like for example, I don't know how many times I have to diffuse situations where, to be honest here, usually programming guys are insulting people on the other, the disciplines. Maybe sometimes on purpose, but many times not on purpose, and you're like, he didn't mean it like that. Yes, it sounded horrible, I understand, but he didn't mean it like that, I don't know how many times I've been there. My favorite example, though, the experience was, I worked in a game company when I was the lead tech designer, and the lead gameplay programmer, which I worked very close to that, because we did most of it together, so I was also implementing this stuff. So he was like the guy I worked most with, but he had a very, very, abrasive personality, and he had like zero filter, right? So we had a new guy that we had hired. He was an intern. It was like his first job out of the industry, and he had a very weird name. He had a typical name, but a very weird spelling, so to speak. A very, very strange spelling, right? So before he started, the CEO added him to our Slack channel, like the Slack. So we saw his name, right? And he's like, "What? What? How the hell is he spelling it?" As I mentioned, this programming guy, very abrasive, very like just have no filters. Like immediately says, very loud to everyone. That's a really stupid spelling. What's wrong with that guy's parents? And I'm like, you're right, man. You're right, but you keep it to yourself, right? Like okay, but sure, I agree. And immediately I'm like, oh damn it, this is gonna go bad, right? This guy hasn't arrived yet, but I'm like, oh no, he's not gonna tell him that, right? So I'm like, when he arrives, so I go over to him and like, don't comment on his weird spelling. And I'm like, but he keeps telling me, but it's weird, right? And I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. Why shouldn't I ask him that? No, but I mean, like, it's gonna be rude. Don't ask him why he has a really weird spelling. It's probably his parents' fault, right? So don't ask him that. Like, just maybe wait for a few days or something. So I'm like, don't do it, And like, I'm just like, oh, he's gonna do it. I'm like, don't do it. And it's like, no, it's weird. Yeah, it's weird, but don't do it. And of course, immediately, this is a true story, right? Immediately, when the guys entered the building, he enters the building from the front gate, right? Immediately, this programmer, immediately, like when he's at the door to, like when he opens the door, basically enters the first building, he's like, oh, you have a really weird name. Why do you spell it that right? It's like in his face, and he's like, yeah, my name is that, but my parents spell it. Yeah, why? Parents idiots? And he's like, yeah, no, you're right. And it's like his first impression of this person. He's like, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. And he's like, and of course he's like standing there, what is happening, right? And I come up to him like, oh, no, sorry about him. He's a complete moron. But he's a very good programmer, but he's a complete moron. Just, yeah, welcome to the industry. And I'm like, welcome to idiots. You're gonna hate this workplace. No, but I'm like, that's how it is, man. You have a lot of people with zero social skills. We heard about the Blizzard scandal. I used to work at Blizzard, This is not at Blizzard, but I used to work at Blizzard. And you heard about all those scandals? I'm like, yeah, welcome, man, welcome. I don't actually work in the game industry right now anyway. But, of course, my point here is that communication is very important. And while this programmer guy, I agree with him, on a technical standpoint, or whatever you call it, that name was really stupidly spelled. That didn't make any sense. I was like, why is he spelling his name like that? It didn't make any sense. It was a really weird spelling. And I have to agree with him, generally speaking. Yeah, I also was curious, how are you spelling it? Is your parents spelling that? Or is it someone else doing it? But Of course, end of the line, you don't just ask a guy in his face, no, why do you spell that? You don't attack someone, right, basically, when they open the door. Especially not the first day of their, the first day of the work, right? You could have waited like a week at least. you could have, it's something more that you work with a guy, and then you maybe go out on a Friday after work or something, right? You can take some drinks together, and then you might ask him, I've been wondering about your weird spelling on your name, right? May I ask about that? That's kind of like, but you get drunk, yeah. That's kind of what you do. You don't just like do it in his face the first minute he was in the door. Right? And this is of course a true story, because I've seen a lot of stupid shit like that. So, but that comes back, of course, to the Mark thing. Sorry for my long life story here, but I just hope people can understand what I'm trying to illustrate here. When Mark does his videos and does this thing, you sit in there, right, as I said in the first video, and you had that like bizarre look on your face. At least I had. I was like, what is this? Yeah, like you can't do this in Japan. And that's kind of what I mean, right? Because, as I mentioned yesterday again here, when you are coming from your part of the world, right, whatever, this could be, for example, a programmer talking to an artist, right, yeah. You have to translate that in a proper way, right, to be able to talk to the other person. And he clearly miserably didn't do that, in a sense, because it is really weird. And it comes off as very, very threatening and very insulting, right, in a Japanese setting. And that's, of course, is why I commented it now then, that the Japanese people had a very, very negative take, right, on in Japan, right, his video comes off as incredibly negative, and he has very little support, right, by Japanese people in general, which again come back to what I said yesterday. That makes perfect sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me that you would think this video would go well right in Japan. And that's probably the main reason, though, that we have this unfortunate racism that I have to address, right? I see a lot of people on Twitter or whatever and so on, and YouTube, etc., right, being quite racist towards Japanese people for no reason. And it's honestly a very like weird culture. If I'm going to be technically, I would say it is a cultural imperialistic behavior, right? You're basically like, why do you hate him for? Why don't you have the same culture we have? It's your fault yet. I read people saying that, basically, it's not like, I mean, I don't say someone says definitely, but someone wrote, it's so many dumb comments I've seen, of course, but some people are like, it's not his fault that the Japanese are stupid or whatever. That's basically the context, right? A lot of people are writing like, well, he was perfectly respectful. It's not his fault that the Japanese are idiots and can't understand him or whatever. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the general, I think, consensus of a lot of people defending Mark. Or it's not his fault that they can't understand what he's saying, right? But it is his fault. And I know people are going to be angry again, right? His fans for me saying that. So it is great that you can see the dislike button. I'm just kidding. Actually, the first video again has actually mostly likes, but it is something I have to address, though, generally speaking, that it is kind of weird. I shouldn't say it's weird. And when I actually first saw his video, I started thinking about the halo effect, which is a really interesting sociological effect, and I might make a video about it in itself. But basically, the halo effect, you can describe that as a fanboyism, I suppose, in this case. So the halo effect, I said very briefly here, it is when you have a positive opinion about someone that no matter what they do, you think they're good at it anyway. So basically, if you say you're in love with this woman, Lena, okay, so you love Lena, right? You're like 16, she's a hot girl, big titties, yeah, you like Lena. And someone asks you, should we take Lena to our study group? We're going to have a math exam next week, right? Should we have Lena in our study group? And you're like, yeah, Lena, oh yeah, I wanna, yes, Lena, she's good at math, And that's someone asks you, but we can only be like 4 people. So do you really want to have Lena in our group? Because she might actually be really bad at math. We have no, information if she's good or bad at math. But because you wanna have sex with her, so you're like, yeah, I want Lena in my group. Oh yeah, that's kind of the most extreme version of the halo effect, right? But the general sense is that if you're in love with someone or whatever, I don't say people are in love with more, but I'm just saying, if you're in love with someone, it has its strongest effect, right? You are gonna generally believe that they're good at whatever else you don't have any information about. So basically, even if you don't know anything about Lena's mathematical skills, because you have a crush on her, right? you're gonna think that she's good in mathematics, even if you have zero evidence for it, right? That's a halo effect. You also have basically the reverse halo effect, or the negative halo effect, whatever it's called, but usually it's called like reverse halo or whatever, where, of course, if you hate someone, you dislike someone, right? You automatically think that they are bad at whatever other subject you're thinking about, right? So, for example, one commented on my hot waifu wall, and I was like, that was the best comment in a way. No, but honestly, I understand again, right? I understand that people are gonna defend Mark, and you're gonna be angry and so on. And just to point out yet again here, I am not in favor of the Japanese copyright system, right? In that sense, I'm not in favor of what Toei generally is doing, but I'm just in favor of like these are the facts. These are like this is the reasoning from like a legal standpoint what you should and shouldn't do, right? And unfortunately, when I see his video, that means that I'm not against him as a person, but I'm against his legal strategy, or whatever you call it. But anyway, again then, when use this comment, for example, I think per example of what I'm talking about, that person is probably angry at me, right? Because I'm just like describing as I see as the facts. Of course, I don't have all the facts, but the facts I do have, I can judge right on and try to judge them in a business and a league the best I can, and be like, this thing here is against Mark, this is for Mark or whatever, right? That doesn't mean that I hate Mark, but I don't like his strategy again, right? So this person then gets angry, and then they're like, oh, you're an ugly fat guy, so you're wrong with that. Of course, it's not an argument against anything I say, so I don't know why I'm actually addressing the comment in that sense, but I'm just addressing it in the perfect example of reverse halo, right? That person dislikes me because I am not on their side, but I'm actually just a neutral person, right? Where if anything, I am on Mark's side, and I'm trying to argue how he should approach this, right? You know what I mean? So in my standpoint, I guess let's think about it. In my standpoint, I am actually the most on Mark's side. I am actually the person here that is actually on his side, and being his fanboy, based on this, I say again then, massive halo effect, that is actually not being on his side, right? Because being a yes man doesn't actually help him. And I don't want to say I am right and he, listen to me, but honestly, to be frank, you should listen to me much more than listen to a person who's a yes man. Right? Never listen to a yes man. Listen to a person that's like, you shouldn't just listen to someone that tells you what you want to hear, right? You should listen to someone that tells you what you have to hear, what you should hear, yeah. I'm telling Mark, so to speak, or people in his fans, how reality works, right? I'm telling you, this is how the law is, this is how Japan works, and if you want to be, if you want to make it in Japan, especially in the business world, you have to address and act according to their culture, right? And then respect their culture. And even if you don't like that culture, or you don't want to understand it, you have to try, or else you're going to have a much harder time. This has nothing to do actually with Japan, it's just how you succeed, right? You have to actually try to fit in, so to speak, right? To some extent. At least pretend that you do, right? And so yeah, I would want to say, from my perspective, especially my professional perspective, when I work and so on, I am actually the most on Mark's side. No probably really pissed off by saying that, but yes, because saying the truth and being like, this is not how you do a video or whatever, right? This is not how you address a legal company and so on. That's much more valuable for Mark than you just saying that you want Mark to win or whatever, or you love him, whatever. You want him to succeed, right? That thing is just a very powerful halo effect, or fanboy, whatever, right? That makes you, I would say it, not act in a logical or rational behavior, right? My behavior is always, in my whole life, trying to be as rational as possible, and that is much more helpful for Mark. So honestly, yeah, the halo effect that I come into here, and I think it's a very, very important thing to think about generally in life. It also has the whole idea of bandwagon, right? That just because you like someone, you shouldn't believe it, that you have to always think about critically, like, okay, what's this person saying, right? And this is true for everything, for your parents, for your teachers, for everything, right? You have to question people who's telling you, right? I was always that kind of student in school where even if my teacher was like, this is how you do this math, I was like, really? But can't you do it? Can't you improve this formula? You know what I mean? That is the brain you want to have. You always want to question everything, right? And think about it and have your own, insightful and things that if you do that too, you also learn it better, right? So if you want to learn any STEM subject, you have to question the formulas. You have to question the actual behavior of the formula and so on. If you do that, you test them out, and you see that you cannot disprove this whatever Newton's law, whatever, right? And you can't disprove it, you're actually gonna believe in it better, right? If you just accept that someone tells you that the Newton's third law is the law of power pressure, if you just accept that law without actually confirming it, you're gonna have a weaker faith in that law, right, so to speak. So yeah, Newton has this, the laws, right? There's sort of typical, I think, issues with education for that matter, right? The people don't actually question the math or whatever. They just accept it. You should question it, and then when you have thought about it, right, you can actually then truly believe in it because you have tested it out, you have verified in your own life this is actually how it works, right? But anyway, so the halo effect then, and like this comment is very good example talking about here. This person is like angry at me, so they're calling me out, oh, you're fat or whatever. Of course, it has no relevance to the actual subject, and I'm not really fat though, but whatever. I'm a big firm, I'm a very big guy. Okay, I'm tall. I'm Swedish. I'm a sizable person. I weigh 130 kilograms, so it's like 307. Yeah, was it 300? 260 times, yes, I weigh like 380 pounds something. So I'm a very big person, and like, yeah, of course, but I'm also like my BMI is 39. It's true. From a BMI standpoint, I'm very fat because I have 39. I'm 39 in body mass index, so obviously I'm like ridiculously fat, right? But of course it comes from just being very, very sizable and so on. But anyway. Damn it! No, I agree with them. No, because my point is that kind of comment, right, has absolutely zero value. I'm not saying that you should be like, they're wrong. I'm not fat. No, I mean it in the sense that, like, you're just being pulled in, right, by a reverse halo effect. You just hate me because I am not a yes man, and then you apply whatever you want, right, to try to insult me. For whatever reason, right? But actually, the actual reasoning is that you dislike me because I'm not on your side, right? But I actually am on your side, as I explained it. I actually am more on his side than you are, to be frank. But anyway, of course, a typical halo effect then has the same system, right? In all the way then, right? That just because you're on Mark's side doesn't mean that the Japanese culture or whatever is wrong, right? And again, as I mentioned earlier, it could have been any kind of culture. It could have been Swedish culture, it could have been Irish culture. He's Irish, yeah. It could have been Irish culture. I used to live in Ireland, so I lived there for almost 3 years, so I know Irish culture. I live in Dublin though. He's from Cork, right? Yeah. But I live in Dublin, so I know Irish culture very well as well, for that matter. But my point, of course, is that you have to look at the reasoning, right? Look at the strategy and try to, okay, how do I behave with this given culture, right? So that of course goes back then that in this case we're talking about Japanese culture, right? Of course, in this specific scenario here, right? It could have been Irish culture, it could have been American culture, but here we have the Japanese culture. So the whole idea that to call them racist because they don't want to accept your culture, that is racist in itself, yeah. No, but that's like to say that they are wrong because they don't act like you want them to act or whatever. It's just really weird and also kind of appalling. But I mean, it doesn't make any sense from any rational standpoint. Of course, it comes again mostly from the halo effect. Right? It comes from that people cannot accept that Mark can be wrong because they like him, so they think that he's right no matter what he's saying, right? And that is the halo effect again, because you interpreted people's like say it, how much you love them as a fact on how good they are at other subjects, right? That aren't actually part of whatever they're doing. So even if you step and love Mark's reviews, okay, so he's a great reviewer, okay, so that's what you like him because he's a great reviewer, right? That doesn't mean that he's good at economy, right? It doesn't mean he's like a great guy at stock trading or whatever. It doesn't mean that he's like, oh, he bought the right stocks, he has like so much Tesla or whatever. Yeah, it doesn't mean that he's not doing the correct, investment strategy, or he's a great house builder or whatever, right? It's completely irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. It doesn't mean that he has to be bad at it either. It's just completely detached, right, from the actual subject itself. So if you go back to this Lena case, you might then discover that Lena, even if you want to F her, right, you discover she's horribly at doing math, and then you fail your exam, right? She was so bad at it, right? So usually what happens with people is, depends on how, of course, ingrained you are in this halo effect, but usually what happens is that you have to get like facts right that are completely against your belief, and then you might change your opinion somewhat. Right? And it's also kind of funny then because the halo effect also makes people observe people as ugly or or beautiful or whatever, right? So for example, then someone calling me fat might think that I'm really fat because I'm against Mark. But if I was like for Mark, which again I am, I would argue for that I'm actually the most for Mark because I'm trying to actually establish how he should go about it, right? So, but anyway, in this person's opinion, right, in their perspective, I'm against Mark, and then they add stuff like this guy is fat or whatever, right? So I mean, but if I was pro Mark, they would have seen me as more beautiful. That's actually how the halo effect works. This is kind of scary. So what you see in research is that if someone's dating someone, right, or they love whatever, yeah, and then she's so beautiful and so on, right, and then they break up, right, and you see the person the next year afterward, this guy that might be like, oh man, she put on weight, she's so fat now, whatever, right? If she actually even might be thinner, right? Doesn't have to be like that, but it's very, very common that people then are actually observing people as uglier than they actually are because the halo effect, or in this case the reverse halo effect, is so strong that they actually add, like maybe she always had, a kind of a fat stomach or whatever, right? Yeah, but you never cared about it before. But now I'm like, man, she's so fat in the stomach. Yeah, I never thought about that before. Yeah, so it's kind of like the whole glass shattering, that idea, right? That for someone kind of like, oh shit, that's how it is, and you kind of like understand this how whatever it is, right? So for example, one of my favorite comedy TV shows, How I Met Your Mother. I hope people seen it, but whatever. It's one episode of How I Met Your Mother. It's all about that the glass shattering, and they're like, oh, he always sings. You're so annoying. Like, for example, Marshall always like, no. He always does like singing and so on, right? And when one of the friends then, when they address like you are an annoying person because you were always singing and being super annoying, the rest of them were like, no, you mentioned it. I am super annoyed about this shit. Yeah, now you know that's like he's basically protected, right, from his annoying behavior because they like him. But when this other person points it out and really like explains why this is super annoying, they're like, that is super annoying, yeah, but I knew you for 10 years and I never thought about it because I liked you, you know what I mean? That's the halo effect. So the halo effect is very, very important to think about. And I think that most is the reasoning, right, why you see these racism and so on against, but people, right? Because if you have a lot of fans, and also that Mark is pulling in fans from like PewDiePie and so on, right? So it's a lot of people that are emotionally invested, right? And they can't see that he did anything wrong, so they have to blame someone, right? You have to blame the Japanese people, you have to blame, not just Toei, but Japan is evil or whatever, right? You have to blame them for being evil or something. So it really comes from like a reverse halo from them and a positive halo from him, right? And it really clouds people's judgment. So that's one reason why I made this video. But of course, most comments I've seen and so on about Japan, right? It just really makes no sense. Why I agree, as I wrote in the comment section, why I agree, for example, that yes, working in Japan, not a good place. I know Japanese companies, they're not very, also have bad salaries for that matter, but it's a lot of work. It's very high, it's very stiff in Japan. So an issue in Japan is that it's very hard to like communicate with not your manager, but like up in the ladder, right? So if you have an issue and you have to talk to like the CEO or whatever, dream on, right? It's very hard to like you have to go the proper challenge, right, to address someone, and that's very much a Japanese is, right? You have to. If I would talk to this person over here and I'm here, I need to go in the correct channels to get there, right? And one thing is very true. My experience in Japan is that not only is it like hierarchical pyramid, but it's also like different pyramids. So if I'm here and you are here, right? So we're the same height, okay? So let's say I'm level 3 and you are level 3. So you're actually the same, like I'm mid-management, you're mid-management, okay? We're the same management level, okay? So we have the same level of whatever, right? Like respect or whatever, in Japan. Very much for Japanese, right? We're the same level, so we're the same equal in a sense. However, you were in this department, like I am in the legal copyright, whatever. Yeah, I'm in the publishing department. You're in like the code department. Yeah, so we're in different departments and we don't have the same, that. So I am in one pyramid in a sense, and you're in your pyramid, right? Yeah, that's also very tricky for Japan. So then it's like, okay, how do I talk to this guy? Even if we're on the same level, I can't talk to you. I mean, I can say take a drink with you, but I can't talk to you about the business, right? No, I have to talk to. Not even your manager. Basically, I have to send my message to level 4 manager, and he has to go to level 5 manager, then our level 5 guy talk to your level 5 guy, and then that guy sends it down to 4 and then to 3, right? That's basically how it goes. It goes like this, right? That's kind of how it goes. You have to move in the pyramid between the pyramid tops and then go down again. That's kind of how it works, which is really ineffective, right? I mean, I'm not saying that Japan is perfect, and that's a great way to work, because that's super slow. And for example, Sweden, where I'm from, right? In Sweden, it's a very flat hierarchy. That also brings a lot of issues in Sweden, because Sweden, it's too flat. So in Sweden, instead, it's like, what should we do? And then everyone's level 1 in Sweden, right? So there's no one is level 2 or 3, so no one is ever in charge of Sweden. So so in Sweden, it's super annoying, because if you have to make, like, I want to make this thing in the product, I want to change this thing, right? You have to vote about it. It's like, it's too much democracy, which sounds weird to say, but it really is. So everything is super slow in Sweden as well, because if you want to change anything, you basically have to, address the whole company. Everyone has to vote about this, yeah. And it's super annoying, right? Where if you work in Japan, or like America for that matter, and also more, of course, pyramid, you can ask your manager, I want to do this thing. He can say, yes, do that. And then it's fine, right? So it's the positive side, to some extent, is actually more effectiveness, right? When you have the typical pyramid, but some simpler communication can be really, really tricky, right? In Japan, because you have to go like this and so on, and it's super annoying. Once I had to wait for like 2 weeks to get an answer. I needed to talk to an audio engineer, because I was working on this, it was a game, and the audio was very weird when we were localizing it, changing it, and so on. And they actually created like out of memory bond, whatever, don't know the details, but it created like a huge crash that not only did it crash, it was a game, and it only did it crash the memory out of bond in this user rating, but it jumped through different languages. So what it did was it actually crashed the Xbox. So if you played on Xbox 360, it actually would remove the memory on your Xbox for all your games. So of course we can't publish a game like that, because then we're gonna be, we have to, we're gonna ruin the consumers' all their games, right? So it was like a massive showstopper issue. And I won't say about the game here, because of course and so on. But yeah, so basically what happened was, when you play the game and you were attacking someone, the character is gonna say, I will attack you, right? And then they're gonna, if you do it enough times, they go through different attack lines, right? But if you did like for 5-6 times quickly, they, instead of looping back, so like in English, 5 comments, then back again, 5 comments, they went over to the next language. So they went like, Japanese, English, German, they kind of went over all the languages. So it's like a funny bug, because you actually kind of kept getting, if as long as you kept attacking, right? And this of course would happen on any boss character, they wouldn't be defeated immediately. So they kept like, if you took a break for like a minute, it would, restart, right? But if you kept attacking, and eventually then, of course, when you did all the languages, the whole game would crash, and it would start deleting your all your save files. So I'm not joking. It was like a ridiculous bug, yeah. I was like, what's happening? So out of memory, then it started to, I guess, I think it started to loop. Then the pointer in the code started to try to get other files, and when it couldn't play those files, it would like remove the files or whatever, because if they weren't like audio files, they would remove it, right? So it went into your memory and started removing stuff, because there wasn't like an audio file, I suppose. But anyway, to get this thing fixed, right, because I was the one that found the issue, and I was working on this like publishing, localization and so on this game, right, for Japanese and English and so on. So yes, I was doing the Japanese and English and stuff, right? Anyway, so I was like, we can't have this thing, because you're ruining the Xbox, it's crazy, right? And it took like 2 weeks for me to talk to the audio engineer for one thing. So I was like, here's the issue, man, and I'm sending it, I have to go like this, right, to send my message and explain the issue like I did now to the audio engineer, and he has to be like, oh, okay, so is this the issue or this the issue? So it took like 2 weeks for me to go like that, right? And then after 2 weeks, I get my message back from him, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like your B example. That's how I would fix the code, okay? And then I have to say, yes, do that, right? But I wasn't allowed to like tell him that immediately. I have to go the same path again, right? So then it's like 2 weeks, then it's like another week, right? For my message to be like, yeah, do the B option, to go back to him. And then after 1 week more, so 2 weeks total, that's 4 weeks in total, I guess, in the whole procedure, he comes back to me and says, yeah, I fixed it. You know what I mean? So then I have to go like that, and then after he fixed it, I have to turn on the game and so on, right? And actually like test it from QA and be like, is it fixed, guys? Look at my QA guys, and yeah, it's fixed. Okay, good. Then I can send it back to him again and say, yeah, you fixed it, you know. So it's like a 5-week process, right? Where if I can talk to him immediately, it probably take like 3 days. So yeah, that's Japan, guys. But I've seen the same thing in America too, for that matter. Though it's not unique for Japan, though. But it's probably the most prevalent in Japanese culture, right? But why am I saying this thing? Because I'm hating Japan? No, I'm just saying this is how it works, right? This is how Japan works. You have to go through the proper channels. Am I saying that Japan is perfect? No, I'm far from it, right? But when it comes to Mark's case, it comes back again to, of course, the second video. When you do this kind of stuff, right, you have to look at it from how am I communicating with the proper channels. And a lot of people are talking about the respect, right, which is very Japanese, right? The disrespect, respect, and so on. And one thing I see people saying is that, but Toei disrespected Mark by removing his, his videos first, right? Which they blocked them by something, but anyway. So they attacked him first. Ergo, he is right to attack them back. Right? That seems to be, I think, in my opinion, what I've seen, the most common explanation people have to like defend Mark's actions or whatever, right? That he should be allowed to intimidate back because they attacked first, right? But that, from a business standpoint, is completely delusional. I'm sorry. You can hate me as much you want, right? But from a business standpoint, that is completely asinine, I guess. The word I used for that. Yeah, it's asinine. Because what Toei did, from a legal standpoint, is completely correct. Yes. You can say that they are ignoring fair use and so on, right? But the thing is that, who's the main kind of culprit in a way here? Well, it's YouTuber. That's what they're doing this video on YouTube, I guess. But it's like, it's YouTube mainly, right? But YouTube has a system where this is how the system works. You upload videos and people are allowed then to claim the videos, either block them or take revenue and so on, right? Or not take them now. And if they do that, you are allowed to counterclaim, dispute the claim, counterclaim, and then counterclaim. This is the system how it works, right? Toei is using the system how it works. So in a business standpoint, especially again in a Japanese business cultural standpoint, they have done nothing wrong, right? For in their standpoint, they're like, this is how it works. He uploaded our copyright, we have the right from the system to take them down, right? Or in this case, and block them. We have the right to do that. If he want to dispute that, he's allowed to dispute it, right? But we have done it, right? Yeah. So from a business standpoint, they have done nothing wrong, right? Because the system and the legal ramification is fine doing that. So you cannot say, again, from a business standpoint, that they attacked him first. They didn't. They didn't. He is on YouTube. He's agreed to the YouTube terms of service when this rules applies. That it's kind of like playing a soccer game, whatever. Let's do an analogy here. It's kind of like you go and play soccer, which is I like football more, honestly. Why soccer? You go and play basketball. Okay, you play basketball. You are agreeing that it's a 5 against 5 and so on. You're agreeing on a set of rules, right? You're agreeing that you have to get the most balls down and get the points and so on. You're agreeing to these rules, right? Mark entered a basketball game with these people and he agreed to these rules. Are the rules good? No. Are the rules fair? No, they aren't. I'm not defending YouTube, right? I'm not defending Toei in the sense of like a legal standpoint. I'm just saying that these are the rules and you have to, play by the rules if you accept the rules. And that's probably where you can definitely see that I think Anno was at fault here in that sense because he accepted the rules. The rules are bad. I'm not saying that the rules are intelligent or that they are fair or whatever. Again, I'm not saying that they are proper rules, but I'm saying that these are the rules. And you have, made a standpoint where you are in this system of rules, right? So, from a business standpoint and from a legal standpoint, they're obviously Toei is doing nothing to disrespect him first because they're just following the rules, right? And you could argue, say, what is fair or not then, but basically, it was a basketball game then, and if Toei was playing against Mark's team, right, so to speak, the difference here between, how the rule was in a normal basketball game is that instead of having 5 against 5 players, in YouTube basketball, you can have infinite number of players. It's actually kind of like if you watched One Piece and you've seen the episode of when they played dodgeball, right? Yeah, so they played dodgeball in One Piece. With the Foxy. Spoilers here, but for One Piece fan, but yeah, it's kind of like that, right? So when they play against Foxy in One Piece or whatever, yeah, they're allowed to have infinite number of players, right? So Foxy has like 500 crew members, against the Strawheads, right? And they have very few members, but that's the rules. They still win anyway because they're better, right? And the number of players isn't really important in an anime because they're like the person's power is better, right? Like a one person power, like a tank or so on. Yeah, so they have different powers, right? But in reality, if you play basketball then with Toei has like 1 million players, and Mark has like maybe 2 players, right? You know what I mean? Mark has like 2 guys on his team. It's like him and I guess this Japanese woman, right? I suppose, and no one else, and he's playing like 1 million players, right? And that's incredibly unfair. However, he agreed to enter that court, right? And that is what people just don't want to accept here. He agreed to play the game. That's just the fact. He agreed to go into this game and say, I'm gonna play against this guy. Yes, they have 1 million players, and we have 2 people, but we can still win, right? And that's fine to do, but that's what he's agreed to. So that's the setting, right? And this is again YouTube rules. So playing on YouTube, those are the rules, right? You are a very tiny person compared to the big YouTube, Google, or Alphabet corporation, right? And also this Magic corporation. Yeah, so you were playing against a very, very big team, right? In this basketball court. So that's how your YouTube kind of operates, right? So you're in YouTube, and now you're playing this game where if anyone goes after you, you're gonna have like 1 million players against like your tiny team, right? Which is how it is. And in this position, then you can then still win. You can still win. And coming back to why I say I am actually the most on his side, because my first video was actually explaining what you shouldn't do, right, in these legal places. So this is much more valuable, again, honestly, right? So I would have been a better team player, but whatever, I digress. My point, of course, is that you can actually win this game, because it actually is kind of like One Piece, but one player can have powers and so on, yeah, one can better. But you can still win, right? However, though, what Moore kind of did then in this analogy is that he was like, wait, they have 1 million players? No one told me that. It's like, everyone told you that. No one told me that. Then he took the ball and he ran out the field, right? And he refused to play the game. That's basically what I know people are going to be angry saying that, but it's kind of what he did, right? Yeah. And where he kind of threw the ball in the face like, you are cheating or something. But they're not cheating because he agreed to go into the court against 1 million players, and then when they say, okay, let's play, he's like, wait, actually, no, I don't want to play, and yeah, or whatever, right? Obviously, I'm being hyperbolic, but I hope people understand my point here, is that this is the setting you're playing it. And again, it's incredibly unfair, but that is the setting you agreed to. So what can he do then? Well, the thing is that it's a decision, right, where they are claiming his videos, and then he can use, as I mentioned last video again, you can counter, file against them, and then they're gonna very likely not accept that, and then you can get your strikes, and then you can fight all the strikes on the same time, and you get your channel restored, right? It's extremely very likely, and actually after I saw my own video, I watched Super Science Scholar video. I say the right thing here. Science. God, I can't speak. I am tired. I watched. If I say his name correctly here. Science Scholar. Yeah. I don't know why I call him Super Science Scholar. Maybe he said that. Yeah. Anyway, Science Scholar. I can't speak now. Science. Those Dragon Ball guys. Anyway, he made a video that I hadn't seen when I made my video, but I knew about his case, and I was addressing his case. Even though I'm sorry I didn't say his name in the first video, but I was addressing him as a sample, right? Or just generally speaking, but I was like, these are guys with more strikes than Mark, right? Or so on. So look at his video. I didn't know about it, but it's a very good video. He explained that, well, it's like, again, I knew about it already, right? But I didn't know he made a video. Just be clear here. I knew about his case half a year ago, but I didn't know he made a video about Mark's case. Okay, sorry about confusion. So he made a video yesterday, 2 years ago, I guess. Where he explained he had 300 strikes, right? Again, in my video yesterday, I did address that people had more strike and claims than Mark, right? And they have managed to get the challenge back and so on. Because, as I said yesterday, the best way is to send all those 150 content on the same time. If you do that, they have 14 days on them to address all of them in one court hearing immediately, which is going to be really hard. Then they have to send it court into So it's even better, honestly, because if you send one content notification, they're gonna be like, oh, okay, we can maybe write against that and so on. It's less work for them, right, in 14 days to answer, one counter file. But what if you give them like 150 counter files? That's just an improvement in your strategy, as I explained that. But anyway, he explained in his video how he had 300 strikes. I think he had 298 or something. But double amount of more, and he had strikes, which is worse than claims. So yeah, of course, strikes are much worse than claims. Strike is an actual takedown, and it's actual a legal setting, but where claims means that Mark has his channel still working fine. Of course, on the channel, yes, all the videos are gone, but he could upload new videos, right? So, but if you have strikes, you can't upload new videos. So I mean, this is obviously a huge difference already there, right? But anyway, I digress. My point, of course, is that if you're in this court system, right, this is kind of how it works, and you have to, you play the game. You play the, I guess you play the court you dealt with, right? So anyway, back to his video then. So in his video, second video, I guess premiere again here, and the general, I'm addressing people's hate for Japan and so on, right? But you have to understand that Toei, again, they're not morally correct or whatever, but from a business standpoint, what they did was just we're playing the game. You joined our court, we're playing the basketball that we want to play, right? And you have to fight them as effective as you can without breaking, so to speak, your strategy, right? Yeah, without breaking whatever how you can do it. So in his case, and this is again my biggest critique, right? He should have hired a legal aid and a business aid, and he should prepare a much better video where you actually, for example, like I work with, how to address the Japanese culture, how do I localize this thing, how do I publish this thing into a proper, meaningful way for a Japanese individual, right? And again, before I made my video yesterday, because I made it early yesterday morning, so I hadn't seen kind of the feedback that he had, right? I haven't seen that Japanese people were disliking his video and people were hating them and so on. I haven't seen it yet, right? So, but in my point here, right, I guessed that he was going to get a lot of backlash, right, from the Japanese community, which I was evidently correct on, right? And that's kind of what I mean, because again, his video is so anti-Japanese culture. I explained it in length, of course, in the last video. Why, right? Because it's like in Japan, you have to do this thing, you have to for per channel, it's all about saving face. As I said, that's the biggest point. You have to save face in Japan. So in Japan, you can't address someone that openly. You have to let them protect their respect, right? So one thing that respect means in Japan is that if I know you did something wrong, right, I can talk to you, but I definitely have to do it in private, and the person has to do it on the side, right? I can't attack you openly, because then I'm insulting you and I'm disrespecting you, right? I have to allow you to protect your respect for yourself, right? Your reputation for yourself. And then doing the videos yesterday is, of course, this openly attacking, a person in Japan in a sense, right? It is incredibly against, again, Japanese culture. I explained it again. I explained it for 30 minutes yesterday, right? But again, just to really point it out, you cannot do it in Japan. No one's ever going to respect you if you do it in Japan, right? And people can talk about, as I iterated here again, then, that they attacked him first, but they didn't. They followed the rules that works. And of course, from a technical, moralic standpoint, they attacked him first. But from a business standpoint, they didn't. And that's what we have to look at. Did they attack him? No, they didn't. They followed the business standpoint. I'm not saying that because I like Toei, right? Whatever. I'm saying that it was how it works. And I hope people understand what I'm talking about here, right? That if you agree to play on this court with these huge companies, and then when they play with you, you can see it as a basketball tournament, right? And Mark was playing basketball against PewDiePie and against other YouTubers. So he was playing with those guys, their teams, and then suddenly here comes the corporation team, and he's like, wait a minute, these guys are in the tournament? I didn't know about that. They have a chameleon place, what? And yeah, oh shit, this is how it works. And it's like, oh goddamn it, right? So then you have to play the cards you dealt with, right? And I think it's very important to people in general to think about that you actually have to always have to win the best possible way you can, right? And I also many times in my life see people do really bad stuff from my work standpoint, right? People are like, why, he's suing us? But why is he suing us like that? He's not gonna win that. Or vice versa. Of course I will sue you. Like, I have sued people in my life, okay? I have sued people both for working, but also professionally, personally. Personally, yeah. I have sued people personally, for example, breaking contract, right? Or also for other, actual violence, so on, yeah. civil court and so on. Yeah, and I'm just like, of course I'm gonna sue you. Like, why do you think I'm gonna sue you for that? And then usually they settle at court. It's because they don't want to go to actual court, right? And it's very easy to do it actually. And yeah, it's not that complicated. So for example, I'm not talk too much about it here, of course, but I had a guy that was always I was working with this person, and he was always like gaslighting basically. So he was always lying. He said something. We have a meeting with him on Monday, right? About some stuff, and he says something that I was like, this is very offensive, or this thing or whatever. He was very offensive, but he was a racist, and he was a racist, and he was definitely racist, and he said a lot of weird stuff. And I'm not talking about people. He's a white guy, so he was a racist against no, he said a lot of weird stuff, right? And he's very abrasive towards me and other people and so on, and generally it's a crazy person, right? So unfortunately, I didn't record this when he threatened me. He threatened me quite severely in one meeting. He's like, I'm gonna ruin your life and so on, right? But I was like, yeah, bro, try, yeah, it's gonna go great for you, yeah. But anyway, after that meeting then I knew that he's crazy, right? So I need to be able to, obviously prove that he's doing this stuff, right? And also, the next day, it happened on a Monday, and the Tuesday then I talked to him, he said, I never happened. He said, you must be crazy. He was very, as you say, the term gaslighting. He was like, when I was like, you were very, rude, you were threatening me yesterday and so on. He's like, I never did that. I was very nice. What are you talking about? Do you remember that? What did you guys say? Like, yeah, it never happened, right? Like, he was basically like, you have to be crazy, it never happened so once. He was very gaslighting. Of course, it didn't work with me, but I'm just pointing out, he was always trying to act like it never happened. Right? He's like, no, I never did. If you claim I did that, you are the one that is a liar and so on. Right? Yeah. So what I did then, very simple, right, is that in this country I worked in America in my life, but in that time I worked in my country where you were allowed to record any conversation you were in, as long as you are also talking. This depends on different countries and states and so on, but in some places, I think in many places, you are allowed to actually secretly record a conversation you are in, right? As long as you talk yourself. In that country, with this place, you're not allowed to record a conversation if you don't talk in it, basically. So you can't leave a microphone or whatever, right, and go away. But as long as you are yourself are participating and talking in this conversation, you can record it. So the next time he wanted to have a meeting with me was more people in that kind of, where I was like, this guy is gonna be crazy again. So I just took my phone and of course I recorded it. Yeah, I recorded, it's completely legal, because of course I was talking, right? So I recorded it, and I did that for a few times, right? And then later on, when he then, broke the law and the contract, and it's as I expected, right? Because he was acting so weird and irrational and so on. I was like, oh, I have this, 3 hours of recording with you or more, yeah. He was like, but I never said that. I was like, I have it on tape, And he was like, so of course he was screwed. Yeah, he was like settlement out of court. Yeah. So I sued him, right? Basically, I sued him, and he was like, "You're gonna win. Here's my lawyer." And I was like, "Here's the recordings." And he's like, you want money?" Yeah, honestly, he was like, and him and the owners was like, "Oh, here, you get money. Please take money and go away." Yeah, they were like, "Take the money and leave us alone." Yeah, it was so easy because I was like, he's obviously cray, right? And as long as I had the law on my side anyway, because he was obviously objectively wrong. But I knew that I can just record all the time because he's an idiot that basically every time he thinks that he can just say whatever he wants, right, in settings, and gaslighting and so on. I was like, I'm just gonna record it, and then I'm gonna have the evidence against you, right? It's very, very easy. And honestly, a little bit, I don't wanna insult Mark here, but when I kind of saw Mark's video, I was thinking about that time when I recorded this guy, right, in secret, again, legal, in my very legal. And I was like, did someone record Mark? And then they uploaded it. I was like, he recorded in secret? I don't want to insult him, but honestly, a little bit in my brain, I was like, was he recorded in secret saying this thing? Because this is bizarre, right? So like he put it up on secret. It almost felt like someone had recorded Mark, saying it, and then being like, putting up, in that sense, right? I don't want to be rude, but it's kind of like honestly what I was thinking about. But anyway, so for example, I sued more than one person in my life for that matter, but that was a perfect example where I was like, well, I'm just gonna record the message, right? Prepare my legal case, because the thing is, of course, in this situation, I assumed that he was gonna break the contract or law or whatever, right, in the future. He also, physically assaulted me, because he pissed off and so on. He's a tinier guy than me, but I was sitting down in a chair, and he suddenly he ran up and rammed me, like he just attacked me like that, and I fell down in the chair, and me fell down. It wasn't like I was feeling, oh, my life is gonna kill me, even though it's questionable. But I was like, I can take him in a fight, so to speak. I can take him. No, but honestly, he's like a much tinier guy than me, and I'm pretty tall as well, and obviously a fat guy, as the comment said. So obviously I'm a big guy, but he suddenly attacked me when I was sitting down. This person, same person, yeah. And it's obviously physical assault, right? So that's another issue, right, with the contract and so on, because he both broke the law and the contract. I mean, law as in like business, business laws, and he broke the contract, right? And then he also physically assaulted me. So I mean, it's another issue, right? That's two different issues, but. Yeah, I pissed him off, obviously, right? So, but that's another issue. That's another issue that just really undermines his character, right? But anyway, my point, to some extent, though, compared to Marky, honestly, is that because I expected this guy to break these laws, right? I didn't expect him to physically assault me, because that took me, of course, for a surprise, right? But I expected him to do this stuff, or at least something similar, because he was always very, basically, lying, or you meet people in your life, right? And you're like, this guy's a snake, this guy's a snake. Like, for example, people that know me know that I'm very, very honest, I'm very, very objective and very honest, but I don't think anyone would ever call me a snake, because if anything, they know I'm a very, very, direct person, yeah. I would never, backstab everyone. I will stab them in their face, yeah. I will stab you directly in your eyes, yeah. I think if anything, I think honestly, people that know me in real life would be I'm the least snake ever, right? Because I'm incredibly I'm very, very open, right, with my opinions and so on, yeah. So I think they're like, he definitely. But this guy then, he was so slippery snaky, right? And that's why I was like, well, I need to record these conversations, right? And also I did record, for that matter, phone, of course. Yeah, to also tip for you, right? So when he kept calling me, he kept messaging me and calling me that he wanted to talk to a meeting and so on, right? And in one of this, it's a long story, obviously. It's a much longer story than I'm giving it now, right? It took place, of course, over a long time period, but for a period he tried to call me and contact me, right? Which also arguably, it's of course with legality. But anyway, so when I finally said, okay, let's talk, right? I sat down, and of course I recorded the conversation on the phone, right, with my computer. So when I sat down and I prepared, to of course record in good audio the whole conversation, right? I didn't just answer the phone. I was, oh, you want to have a meeting on the phone? Okay, call me back, right? And so on. And yeah, that again is like a good example again how you should try to be intelligent before you do anything legal, right? Because yeah, he kept calling me, like, I want to talk, right? And I was like, you want to talk? Okay, let's talk it like this time frame here. And he was like, okay, right. So I can be like, okay, let's talk. Yes, I can be prepared and be like, I can record this message now. Of course, I didn't tell him I was recording it. Why? I don't have to do that. So I didn't that. But of course, I recorded the message because I'm not an idiot, right? And then afterwards, again, then he was like, what? You recorded our? Are you some kind of psychopath? And I was like, no, I'm just intelligent. I recorded the message. I recorded the conversation because I know you're a liar, and then I have it as evidence against you in court. He's like, yeah, but because honestly, he got very angry, right, on one of the phone calls. Again, he also physically assaulted me, so I mean, you're surprised, right? But he got very, very angry during one of the phone calls, and of course, what happens then? You say a lot of dumb stuff, right? Yeah. So of course, he said a lot of dumb stuff, and me sitting there, I was very calm, right? Oh, what do you mean with that? And I just kept, honestly, I probably say that I kept provoking him, right? But I didn't say anything myself. I didn't say anything that I knew could be used against me. I was like, what do you mean with that? It's very, very calm, being like, that is a lie. He's like, no, it's not a lie. Like, that's a lie. You did that stuff. It's like, I was very, very, I was provoking him, absolutely. I didn't let it go down, right? But I was just very calm, being like, this is, and of course, knowing that I wouldn't say anything stupid, right? I just kept like making him say more and stuff. It's kind of like you give them enough rope to hang himself, right? Yeah, I just kept letting him talk, right? And we did it more than once on telephone. So of course afterward I was like, oh, I have a lot of telephone recording with you. How stupid of you, right? But anyway, it kind of brings me a little back to Mark, right? Not only that he should have been prepared, don't just put a video out, doesn't make any sense. But also, when I'm saying this thing here as a general, I guess, complaint to Mark, and that is that I think it is true, we're coming to the comments now. That's like going to reflect a little bit on the situation here more now. We're going straight from, let's leave the Japanese culture and racism and so on, and the Halo effect. Let's leave that and talk about the case again in that sense. I think that one thing I definitely agree on with Mark, again, as a critique on him, is that, and this is honestly maybe my first critique that I had, even though I didn't say that much in my first video, but it's my knee-jerk reaction to the whole situation, is that, but it's so common that people get copyright strikes in anime, right? It's incredibly common, and also claims, but especially strikes. It's incredibly common. As I mentioned, we have Cyan Scholar, right, that has 300 strikes half a year ago, which I wish I addressed him in the first video, even though I kind of, I addressed people in general. I said that, people want their strikes, the L0 strikes, a lot of people got L0, VV and so on, right? There was a lot of animes that some of the companies wiped this spring, right? And I did so on, right? I talked about that earlier. So with all that stuff happening, right? You should be very well versed in the YouTube terms of service, copyright and so on, if you want to be an anime YouTuber. And I know people don't want to hear this, right? Again, Mark is a great guy and so on, whatever. But I think it's very fair to say, even though I know people are angry, I think it's very fair to say that I don't understand, or that I think that Mark is, not being truthful, right? That he is so surprised that it's happening. Right? That doesn't make any sense. And I definitely agree with that in the comment section. People are like, what was he thinking? Yeah, not only on the Japanese movie, but I mean, I'm talking about the general sense of that. That is kind of what I mean when I'm explaining to you and giving you a little bit of my life story here when I sued that guy, right, when he was gaslighting me and so on. Because if I meet a snake, right, if I meet a person in my business sense, and no one's ever gonna work with me again because I'll record messages. No, but I mean, this guy was so slimy, right? I'm not a guy that I go into and just record everything I'm in, I was debating, I'm gonna record every message. Yeah, I'm not recording every goddamn meeting I have in my life, right? I'm not recording that stuff, right? I'm not doing that. But if I have a person that I know, and not only him, but that company itself, but especially this guy, one of the owners of the company, if I know that he is incredibly slimy, he's a snake, right? He's incredibly, like he's lying all the time, right? Yeah, constant lying. And I immediately noticed that he's lying all the time, right? And I'll say one thing about the whole situation, just to give you tips, because I am, my master's degree, right, it's like in human behavior analysis, right? So I'm very into body language and stuff, right? So the thing with him was that we have a word for it in Swedish, and that's called klämcheck. And my mother always told me, never trust people that are klämchecka. So what is klämcheck then? So in Swedish, klämcheck is when you're too positive, like if you're too nice, when you're too like, oh, I love you, man, and so on. Yeah. So the reason actually why I didn't trust this person immediately, I had like really that you know me, is because he was too friendly. Right? He was overly friendly all the time. Yeah, and that sounds like I'm a psychopathic, cynical person, right? But why are you so friendly for? You know what I mean? So basically, when I meet him the first time I meet him in a meeting, he's like, "Oh, you're so great! Oh, the text is so good. The thing is so good. That thing is so well written. Oh, no, I love you guys." He's like that, and I'm just like, "This makes no sense to me." You know what I mean? Like, that to me immediately, I'm like, "Okay, why? It was good. Okay, good for you." But he was like overselling it, right? To an extreme extent. And then when I work with this person, right, I observe him doing everything on that level with everyone, right? So he tells me, "You're my favorite guy, man. You're the best." Woo, And then I see him 5 minutes later, "You're my favorite guy," to someone else over there, right? So I'm like, yeah, this guy is completely, full of baloney, right? Nothing he says has any value because he's just telling you incredibly overselling anything, right? So obviously his praise towards me, I would have absolutely zero belief in again because he's always praising me. Whatever I do, he's praising everyone else, right? Whatever they do, right? Until we get into this confrontation, right? But of course, my point is that before we get into sorry for the camera, before we get into that situation, right? I never trusted him because he was so incredibly overselling everything, right? And also for that matter, when I sit with him in like a whatever, like a conference situation, whatever, right? And he's not talking to me, but he's on the phone with someone else, right? I hear it talking next to me. He's like, "Oh man, you're the best." Yeah, he's doing that on the phone too. He's like, "Oh, you're the best, man. Oh, we have the best. Oh, you got so much money, so on." So I also heard him, lie to people on the phone all the time. Yeah, because he's like we were gonna like hire some people for for like a commercial ad thing, and buying some ad stuff and buying some ad, internet ads and maybe magazine ads and this stuff and so on. Typical stuff, right? And I know the budget. This is what money we have, and this stuff, right? And talking to the guy on the phone, he's like, "Hey man, we have like $1 million. It's no problem. We hold the money, and this stuff." Right? And I'm like, "We have like $1,000. We're talking about, yeah." And I know that the budgets are very tight. We have like 200, and of course you have to kind of sell it, right? But you know what I mean. He's so completely full of lies all the time, right? And if you have that experience, the whole concept I guess I'm talking about here is that if someone is, basically, if someone, I said, if you have a friend that when you hang out with, let's give her a name, we call her Ashley. Yeah, when you and Ashley are hanging out, Ashley's always like, "Oh man, I hate, Veronica. She's a bitch, yeah." So every time you hang out with Ashley, she's always complaining about, Veronica, she's so ugly and fat, And have you heard about this other woman, oh god, man, she's always doing that. She's always like, bitching about your other friends or your classmates, right, and so on. That's typically an example of a person you don't want to be friends with, right? Because of course you have to assume that if you are not there and she's hanging out with Veronica, she's gonna be like, "Oh, that other girl, yeah, but you, right?" Yeah, it's a classic one of those examples, right, where people that act like that you don't have much faith in, because you're like, "I think you say that about everyone." When if you're so ugly, if you're mean to people, you're probably talking shit about me as well, right, and so on. Or even worse, if she's insulting you, basically, if you are Veronica, like, "Oh, you're so ugly, Veronica," in your face, right? And you're friends with her. So why are you friends with her? And as soon as you leave, she's gonna be even more, bad mouthing you when you're not there, right? So that's a very typical example, right? And this is kind of the same, I think, psychological effect, right? Where someone is incredibly, instead being positive. But the same thing, someone is overselling it to you all the time, right? And you notice that they're overselling it to people, next to you as well, so on. You can't trust them because you know that they're overselling it to a maximum, incredible extent, right? And coming back to what I mentioned earlier, it kind of becomes that negative halo effect, because I am like, this guy is incredibly snaky and lying all the time. So he's obviously, I'll get a very a negative halo on him. For me, he has the horns of a demon, right? Yeah, he got the demonic horns for me, right? So I'm like, yeah, this guy is probably like Satan, so I'm not trusting him. But anyway, my point, of course, is that one of the reasons why I started recording our meetings and on the phone and so on, right, to be able to have evidence against him, is because, in my opinion, and also then proven correctly, was that he had the horns, right? He had those demonic horns on him all the time. And of course, I'm gonna expect him to betray me, right, or break the law and so on. You know what I mean? I expect him to go against me because he's proven that he goes against, people. So on. He also was a sexist and a racist. Yeah, it didn't have just the other stuff too. Like, we were going to DreamHack to show our game, and he was like, "We're gonna take all the girls." Yeah, so we're gonna have a booth at DreamHack, and he was like, "We're gonna take all the female employees." And people are like, "Oh, why?" Because they're a sexy boot base, so that kind of bonus stuff. That he's like, we're gonna take all the sexy girls at the office and gonna have boot babes. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, sex sells, I guess, but so he had, is that what I mean, right? In that you have a person where you're like, I don't have a very high opinion about you, right? So but anyway, what I'm trying to say here, even though I'm just mumbling about one of my life experiences. My point, of course, is that, again, as I mentioned with Mark, is that I have a hard time, honestly, understanding what Mark, how he addresses YouTube, right? Because, and I know, I guess I mentioned that people get angry when you say stuff, right? But my point, of course, is that if you're on YouTube and he claims to be, I'm a businessman, I have my employees and so on, right? And people say, how can you be so rude? He has all these business people, so he has all the money in his family. Yeah, and that is my point. If you have a business on YouTube, you really should know how YouTube works, right? You know what I mean? And I think that's fair to say. I know people don't want to hear that. But I'm telling you, this snake man, right, that I knew, that I had to work with, and I had, unfortunately, that he did attack me and so on, right, physically. So I'm telling you this snake, the snake story, right? I'm telling you that as an example of, if you meet a person, okay, complete snaky bitch, right? Like, why would you trust them, You should always expect them to attack you when they have the chance, right? It's kind of like the story about the scorpion in riding turtle. Why did you sting me for? I'm a scorpion, it's in my nature, If you ever heard the scorpion story, when the scorpion gets helped by a turtle over the lake, right, and then it still kills the turtle, so they both drown, and it's like, why did you sting me for? I'm a scorpion, it's in my nature, right there. And that's kind of, if you have like this guy I work with, and I work with a lot of bad people in my life, don't get me wrong, I work with a lot of bad people, this guy is probably the worst. And if you have, he's like, for me, right, he has the demonic scorpion horns, I mentioned again, all the time, right? You have to assume that the scorpion is gonna sting you, and you need to be prepared with a shield, right, when the sting is coming to you. That's just reality. So I'm also doing this video here to explain a little bit, what you should think about as a grown up, right? And or as a grown up, but it's like in high school too, right? Maybe even more, honestly, in high school. Yeah, with all this ugly, yeah. Maybe even more in high school and so on. You think about it more because, people are in high school. Obviously, I'm a fat guy, I'm a nerd, so I get bullied all the time, right? To be honest, the one reason I think that I'm good at handling, to be fair here, I think one reason why I'm good at handling, basically, evil snake people, right, in my business life is because, of course I was bullied. Have you seen my place? I got my freaking red juice, I got my aqua, my senpai, and so on. I still got my, let's forget about C18. Oh yeah, look at that babe. Oh, yeah, best waifu. So on, yeah. Obviously I got bullied immensely, right, in high school and so on. So of course I learned to not trust people. Yeah, of course I learned to not trust people. I was like, they all hate me. But obviously, right. But to be fair, that I was bullied so heavily because I was a nerd and so on, right? You know how that is. Yeah, that made me be a little bit like, I'm not gonna just, trust people, right? So big, you got trust issues. No, but you experience a lot of mean people, right, in high school, and then you become an adult and you expect people to still be mean, because when people become older, they're still as mean. They're just trying to hide it, right, because they have this business, whatever. They're trying to hide it, but people are as equally mean as they were when they were 15 instead of 35. The only thing is that you can't be as open about it, right? But you have to expect them to backstab you. But it still comes back to my issue, though, as I mentioned with Mark, right? Because when I look at this Mark video, and I keep saying it, but I'm just like, why is this guy not expecting to get copyright strikes or to get claims, right? I think that's a fair point to make. It's very fair to say that he should expect this to happen, because it's so much common. It's just a common situation to happen on YouTube, to get copyright claims and to get strikes for anime channels. And it's generally speaking, right? And it comes back to what I mentioned earlier, right? But if you're playing on this basketball court, or maybe a better way than a tournament of basketball, and you know that a few of these teams have like 1 million players, you know that, right? You know you're getting into a situation where you might have to play the million team. Sure, if you're lucky, you never get to play against them. But I have had another channel that I was like, man, holy shit, man. It was like I had to face the team every month, doing anime stuff, and I got like a strike or a claim or something like every day. From different companies, from Destiny, yeah, for every goddamn anime, you know what I mean? Like, I had shit all the time, and then you're like, holy shit, it's so annoying. Like, you just like, yeah, then you get attacked by like all the anime companies. You're like 5 from those, 3 from those, 10 from those, You're like, my god, I have to play the 1 million team every day in the tournament. Like, this other channel is only playing them once a month or something, or once a year, and I'm playing them every day. Like, why do I have to play this struggle, I'm playing like a super hardcore tournament. Where's the easy mode tournament? I want to have easy mode tournament, right? That's, I think, honestly, one of the things with YouTube and anime is that, yeah, you do have this tournament of whatever, right? And the tournament is very, very unfair. Not only is it unfair because when you face the 1 million team, you probably get crushed, right? But it's also unfair because some people manages to, of course, play it on easy mode, as the other people play it on incredibly hard mode, or usually it's in the middle, right? And I have had channels where I had to play it on. I never lost a channel, so don't get me wrong. I've never been, terminated. I never had, as I mentioned in the last video, I never had a community warning or strike or whatever. So I don't know how to really, yeah, that's like when you upload porn for them. Yeah, I never had a community issue on YouTube. I've had claims and strikes, but I could have never done a channel. But that being said, though, I felt for a period of my time on one of my channels, it was like hard mode. I was like bam, 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 and I was like, what is this? German companies? This shit is like, not even only Japanese. They're coming from other countries. I was like, oh my god, it's even what's happening? Like, I had a period where I was like, what? I'm being attacked by like all the big teams from America, German, Japan, some European, all the stuff. I was like, what is this? Like, it was like crazy, right? Yeah. And then you have other peers who are like, oh, I haven't had a striker I claim in a year or something. Some other times, yeah, like it's very very unfair too that sometimes you play on easy mode and you play on hard mode. And I think it actually what to honestly, because I've seen people now a little bit, coming out and how say it, be against Mark Moore, right? Probably because second video made him look, really bad, right, for especially Japanese people. And I don't mean Japanese, I mean YouTubers now. And some few YouTubers have come up and be like, yeah, the guy is, a little bit, yeah. And I think one reason why is because the whole idea of he is complaining about fairness, but as I talked about here, it's also an inherent unfairness in, what difficulty are you playing on, right? And that seems to be very random. So yeah, I have played in hardcore mode for like 1 year, and then the next year, as I mentioned, I played on easy mode, right? And I think people, they're seeing Mark's channel, and to be fair, if he's playing on hardcore mode now, right? He's in Dark Souls territory now, Sekiro time, baby. But it seems to me that until this part, he was playing on easy mode, right? Arguably saying. I'm not talking about the quality and fairness and so on. I'm just saying, did he play easy mode until right now? Where most anime YouTubers, they kind of play on medium to hard, I feel, for the most part of it, right? So it's a little bit like, honestly, I think it's fair to say that, you should expect it to happen, and you had it pretty easy up to this point. This doesn't diminish his emotions right now. It doesn't diminish anxiety. I'm just saying that most of what I'm saying, right, talking about the snake guy, is that you should prepare for this to happen, because it is such a common issue with anime YouTubers. That why are you like, oh, am I suddenly being attacked? So I think that is one thing too, because some people that are mostly coming back to this racism against Japan and so on, right? They are attacking Toei and generally Japanese people. Like, why did you suddenly attack Mark and so on, right? But it's not sudden, I think, from a business standpoint, because again, he should expect this to happen at any moment, right? Because of course he is using copyright material so heavily in his videos. This is not, again, then a question of if it's fair use or not, but it's more about, but if you know that the snake guy is coming after you, if you put this much clip in it, you should expect the snake guy to assault you one day, right? It's kind of coming back to what I talked about here again with my story here, right? I sued this guy, and I had prepared evidence against him because, again, I expected him, to break the con. I expected him, I expected to have to sue him, right? You know what I mean? So I prepared my legal case in advance. I prepared evidence. I collected evidence, right? So I could win in advance, right? You know what I mean? That's how you win the war. Have you ever done Sun Tzu? You win the war by preparing before, right? It's kind of like playing a Magic Gathering, like Hearthstone or whatever, or Gwent, something. Yeah, you play a card game, and the most of the game in these trading card games is won before you actually play the game, right? They are won a lot by how you construct your deck, right? And then you have like net decking and play the same deck, but in a lot of the value in a card game, sorry for my computer playing too long video here, so the computer goes off, so my light goes off, long video. But of course, my point is that when you play these kind of card games, right, half the victory is done before you actually, fight, right? It's a very typical strategy for just, war, right? You win by preparing. Heard about Batman? You win by preparing. Oh, I have this thing in my utility belt, right? You win by having kryptonite prepare utility belt, right? And I think it is very fair to question Mark and say, why are you so surprised, right? And then that kind of comes back into the second video again, right, with the Japanese cultural thing, because that is exactly as I mentioned yesterday. Okay, but now you're trying to talk to Uda, you're trying to talk to Toei and so on. And again, then, why are you not preparing this thing in a better way, right? So what I said yesterday, and I iterate this very heavily here, is that this video should never been done without legal aid, right? The business aid before it. It should never have been done. The script should have been, first reviewed, right, by a real attorney, right? Lawyer it up right before, right? And I keep saying it, right? But like having claims doesn't mean that you have to immediately address them. If you get strikes, you have to address them in 7 days. So it's much worse. He has claims, so he has actually more time on him to prepare his legal case, right? If he has to go to court, right? Or at least, how should I counterclaim or whatever. And as I mentioned again, he probably could just counterclaim it, get strikes, counter notification, and it's fine, right? So it's also really weird why he's playing it up like it's the, you have to go to court probably. But anyway, my point of course is that with this thing here, it comes back to this thing. Why didn't you prepare before you address the Japanese people, right? Because you're addressing them in a very insulting and rude way in Japanese culture. And now the sun is going down here, so the light's gonna be worse. Too long video, but I hope people understand my point on that, right? Like, but if you have an enemy, you have to prepare for that enemy. That's very, very clear to me. And of course, now I have experience in reality, right? I've experienced having to sue people, and I have experience going to court, both from company and from a personal standpoint. But yeah, if you have your enemies, you have to prepare for it, right? And again, being on you, sorry, bam, baby, bad light, yeah, okay, too much light. The sound just went down. It's not my fault. I'm just a blabbermouth. But anyway, a huge point that I'm making about is that you have to prepare for the war, right? And if you're gonna be an anime YouTuber, you have to prepare for that. And also then you have to prepare for how do I address another culture, right? As I mentioned earlier with the whole, if I'm gonna talk to a developer, or talking to an artist, or I'm talking to, like, you know, if I'm talking to a left person or a right person or whatever, right, I need to address them in their communication, right? In communication they understand. And I feel both video 1 and 2, and then of course 3, that he used to remove the videos, right? Because he realized that, oh shit, I hit the fan, right? And now I insulted Japan, and they're probably gonna sue me, whatever. That it all comes together in this, like, never preparing, never actually considering what he does affordably before he does it, right? And I think that's a huge issue here. And coming back to this thing then, one critique I have for the third video, which is a minor nitpick I suppose, but it's still a true critique for the third video, and it's also a legal issue he has again here. And I probably should have earlier in the video, because it's actually more important than my blabbering and before that, but still. One thing I don't like, but now I'm coming to the point here because it's kind of combined from what I said earlier, right? Why did he first... I can't say I'm 100% sure what happened here, but to my observation, he uploads the third video, okay? And then he's like, now I'm gonna let the other 2 videos be up for a bit, so you can like see them. And then I'm gonna unlist them for a bit. And then people are complaining, so I'm gonna take them down and private them. And then I'm gonna up them again, because people are complaining I took them down. And now I'm gonna take them down again. So, I don't know exactly how it happened, right? But he went like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down with the first 2 videos, right? So this especially, of course, again, this video, where he basically probably is liable and so on. And it says himself, or at least he's 2 different things. He's liable, potentially, but also it definitely, as I mentioned yesterday, it weakens his copyright case, right? His fair use case heavily. So this video is really bad to have up, right? And then he goes like this, right? He goes like bam, 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 and then it's like, actually no, wait, people up again. Okay, actually no, and then he goes like this, and then actually no, like this, and then it's like no, like this, and then it's like no, wait, this actually. That honestly kind of what he did, right? That comes back to my whole point here when it comes to preparing for war and so on, right? And actually planning out your strategy. And I don't expect to have watched my video, right? But he probably should have, because not to be I'm the best, but my point of course is that I'm coming with the whole get legal aid, right? It doesn't feel like he still has legal aid. You know what I mean? Because if he then acquired legal aid after doing second video, which it really should have had before, but okay, he's like, oh shit, I get legal aid now. If I was his legal aid, or business aid or whatever, right, in between window 2 and 3, and he's like, we're gonna do this thing now. I'm gonna apologize to Toei, and I'm gonna take the videos down, right? I would have told him a very important thing here is that you're gonna have to do it and then never put them back up again, right? Don't do this thing when you go up and down. Prepare, plan out your strategy, and decide. We're either gonna say these videos are going down because they are probably against me in court. So we're gonna remove the evidence, right, to helpfully not lose in court, okay? They probably already have, of course, downloaded the video, so it doesn't actually matter in a sense. But we're gonna do it to at least try to, you know, remove the evidence against us, right? And also, if the video is down, it's also easier to argue that you didn't attack them and so on, right? Or at least like boycott and so on. So we're gonna remove, especially the second video, as fast as we can, right? And we are never gonna put it up. You know, we are removing it, and we are never gonna push it. And we're not gonna post it on like some other, like Twitch or whatever. Yeah, we're not gonna post it on other channels, right? You know what I mean? We're not gonna put the video up on any other social media, right? If you remove it, we do remove it, right? Or of course, depending on your strategy, we're gonna let it be up. We are right, we are in fair use, we're gonna fight them in court, and we're gonna let the video be up, and we're gonna prove that we are correct and they are wrong and so on, right? And what you do that? You let the video be up, right? Whatever your strategy is, you have to make a strategy and you have to retain that strategy the whole process. You shouldn't make a strategy and then when you get some random comments on Twitter or whatever, say, well, why did you take the video down? I want to see the video. Okay, it's up again. It's a bit, take the video down, you're breaking the law. Okay, it's down again. No, I want to see it again, right? Honestly, like that is, to me, again, a bizarre behavior where it seems to be that you haven't actually decided exactly if you want to have the video up or down, right? So you make the apologise kind of have a apologation video, right? And then you kind of go up and down if you actually want to have the video up, right? For like a few hours. I don't know exactly how many times he unlisted or privated them or whatever, if he removed them. I mean, obviously I haven't followed this exactly and I can't see in some kind of tracking. Someone probably does better than me. But to my observation, or I know for a fact at least, that he went up and down, because when I saw his tweet yesterday, or Discord, or whatever, when I first, someone told me that he had removed the video, I went and checked and the movie was like, unlisted, right? And then after like an hour, it was up again, and then after like an hour, it was privated, and so on. So he went around and changed its, visibility up and down, right, for like a few hours. Of course, I don't know the exact time frame here. My point is just that he didn't have a perfect plan, right? Or I should say perfect plan, but he didn't have a plan, and he didn't stick with his plan, right? He didn't have a plan, say, this is what we're and honestly, coming to that then, did he get did he get sued by Toei or whatever? Some people tell us that for the second video or whatever. Maybe, but I think that honestly, while that might happen, given how he acts here in the third video, it's probably fair to us to assume that seeing that he's getting no, the two things, I guess, seeing people like me saying that second video is probably, against you in court of law, or it is definitely, so you remove it, right? You shouldn't have done it. Seeing that from people like me, or again, he probably hasn't seen my video, but it maybe someone else's video, right? Or someone else comment or whatever, right? It's like, maybe he talked to, I don't know, PewDiePie or whatever, saying that video is bad, whatever, yeah. He talked to some other YouTubers, I don't know. But assuming I am assuming, which I think is very fair to assume, that he probably had a lot of other YouTubers talking to him, right, saying that the second video is really bad, bad look, man. And maybe some Japanese YouTubers like the Anime whatever, like he made a video. Maybe he was like, this video is very offensive in Japanese or whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, maybe someone talked to him. Probably, I think it's fair to assume, right. So that's the first thing, right. People warned him saying that second video looks really bad. Okay, number one. Second reason why he removed it is probably because he started to seeing this, Japanese community backlash, right? And see how he acts with her video when it goes up and down depending on the backlash from people, right? He probably goes like, oh shit, I need to take the video down because he hates in Japan, right? So that's probably the biggest reason why he sees like a huge. He didn't expect the Japanese people to hate it, right? And that is again for me then, as I mentioned yesterday, a bizarre, and why it's so bizarre, because it really speaks to a complete, and I'm trying to not be insulting here to him, but it seems to me to speak to like a complete ignorance of Japanese culture, right? A complete ignorance, because yeah, for anyone that has any understanding of Japanese culture, you would have been like, holy shit, the video was bad, right? Like I said yesterday. And of course then to be so again, for me, it is, I shouldn't say strange, but it is a little bizarre that I think he really was surprised by the backlash, right? I think he was surprised by the backlash, and again then one of the major reasons why he took it down, the video, was because it was so disliked by a lot of Japanese people, right? And I think, like I keep saying here, so now I'm reflecting, right? I'm guessing, right? It's not me, like some other stuff I explained to you have been, this is how the law works, right? Like yesterday, this is how the law works, copyright and so on, and also then talking about some of my own experience with, suing and so on, right? But now I'm just spitballing, right? And to me it feels like he didn't expect that backlash at all, even though, again, in my opinion, incredibly obvious backlash, but he didn't expect it. And then when he got the backlash, he reacted very like wishy-washy, up and down and so on. Oh, I hate, I know how to do it, yeah. Apologize video, I'm sorry, yeah. It's just like, it's weird. And but I think it speaks to a general pattern here, right, of not preparing for war, right. He just goes to war, he goes to that basketball court, and he hasn't like observed who his players are. If you play a professional sport, right, and also whatever, esport or whatever, right, but you very commonly do you look at the other teams, right? You look at other teams and, oh, we're gonna face against a Toei team. Who's the top player? The MVG guy or that guy? Haraba, he's a very good striker. I mean, yeah. Like you observe the opponent teams, right? And you see this is the ace player. This is the guy that's very fast, right? This guy is a very good eagle eye. He's a very good tactician. They have to watch out for that person. You observe, right, and you analyze your opponent's teams, right. And in this case, that his opponent is in a way Japanese culture, right? You have to, how do I defeat Japanese culture? And as I mentioned earlier, you don't defeat a culture speak, but for argument's sake, how do I win against Japanese culture? Well, you have to play by their rules that they respect, right? For example, one thing I was thinking about this morning, as I saw his backlash one, is that why did they have this woman speaking in Japanese? Obviously, I understand that he wanted to say it in Japanese, but knowing how Japan is and Japanese culture is, and my own experience as a gaijin in Japan and so on, Nihongo, that's right. I'll do it in English, but Japanese people, in my experience, or this is actually how Japanese culture is, my experience, but also both in my experience and in how the culture is, right. But when I was on TV in Japan and so on, being able to speak Japanese, they love that shit. Okay, that is how Japan is, right? So. Like when I was on TV, I've been on TV a few times in Japan, and when I was on TV the last time, it was about a year ago, I was interviewed and so on about whatever, and I could speak about Japan, right? Both not only in Japanese, I did speak it mostly in English because my Japanese isn't perfect, so I was like, I cannot do it in English, but I will say some stuff in Japanese, right? That I can say in Japanese, right? So let's say I have like from 1 to 10 in language skills, maybe I'm like a 6 or so, right? Maybe I'm an 8. I don't know. I was saying it's hard to read Japanese, right? It's much harder to learn kanji. Orally speaking it, I think it's pretty fine. And for me, generally speaking though, it's very easy for me, I think, to understand Japanese when they speak to me, right? But it might be hard for me to like perfectly, say the sentence myself. But I can understand what they are telling me, right? And I can like answer in Japanese. But it's much easier to understand what someone's saying to you, right? And also for that matter, no one I'm trying to speak Japanese now, kinda, but it's also easier when you're in the conversation, right? Someone speaks to you, I speak back, yeah. Now I'm talking English here for like 2 hours, for 1 hour and a half an hour. It's harder to go into Nihongo or Svenska or Norska or whatever. It's harder to, or Deutsch, it's harder to change language after you can be doing in one language for a bit here, honestly. But, but anyway, my point is that, sorry about my TV, everything is like too long video. Anyway, my point is that, I've been thinking about this thing, and just generally speaking, his video would definitely have been better received if he spoke Japanese, because they eat it up in Japan, right? They eat that shit up. No, but like it's a very typical Japanese culture thing that they are they respect people that like understand and embrace their culture. Right? They're very cultural, like they want you to accept and understand what they do, right? And they love that you have a white can speak Japanese. Yeah, it works for me. Guided hunters and so on. Yeah, it's easy, right? No, but they really respect that, right? But one thing that I did when I was on TV the last time was that they asked me about yokais, right? They asked me about Japanese folklore because we were discussing roughly maybe like 10 or 20 minutes, something I don't know exactly, but the topic, how do you understand this? Do you understand this in the anime or whatever, right? Because this thing and so on. And I explained to them that I'm well versed in Japanese folklore like yokais because I played Neo and so on. I have the game somewhere in front of me, in one of my piles here. Here we go. Of course, I learned everything from Neo, right? I have a Neo 1 and also have Neo 2, of course, yeah. So I explained to them, I played all the Neo games. No, but why true that I played the Neo games? I did explain to them that, I always liked mythology, and I always liked folklore and so on. So I read a lot of books, and I also played these games, right? I watched some animes about yokais, right? So I know about Yoki Onna, this ice woman, right? I know about etc. Right? So I was like, I know about that stuff, and this thing is a reference to the red and blue Uni, or Aoi, Aka Uni, and this stuff. I understand that they are twins and this stuff, right? Like in RC or whatever, yeah. Or for example, if you play Street Fighter 5, Kage has which means shadow in Japanese. Kage, which is evil Ryu, right? He has two different skins. One is red, one is blue Uni. So Aoi or Aka Uni, right? Because they said blue and red, typical folklore in Japanese. And also red and blue as anti-colors are pretty common in other stuff too in culture. But for example, right? So knowing that stuff, right? That makes, and now I'm being very like, it's not something weird saying, it's like, it makes the people love me in Japan. But it makes Japanese people respect you, right? To some extent. Because if you can tell them that, oh, I know this stuff. Oh, I read Japanese culture. I know about Tokugawa Eishu. I know about the Sengoku period. I know who won that thing. I am well versed in Oda Nobunaga. I'm well versed in different historic aspects. And the different, like, here this what took place, and the Satsuma rebellion thing, and I know, about the Meiji Restoration, and the Emperor, and this stuff, and it's all from anime, of course, and I'm just talking, but no, I read a lot of books, right, and so on, and also seen whatever documentaries, and also played games and anime, but anyway, my point, of course, is that if you can explain to them that not only do I speak the language to some extent, but I also understand, an historical aspect. I understand that this thing here, it's a famous Jinya. Oh, this is shrine. Jinya, this whatever. This god, this kami here is the cube. It's a fox. It's the cube. It's the kitsune. So blah blah blah. And this stuff. Oh, this is a tanuki. Oh, it's a trickster, and they're very evil for that matter. Tanukis are so evil in Japanese folklore. The tanuki, it's so god, and it eats people, so it's crazy evil. But anyway, so of course I was there on TV, right? It was me, a lot of Japanese ladies mostly interviewing me. Yeah, and they were like, yeah, no, that's about tanuki, they get kind of that, tanuki, you know what I mean? So when I'm like, this Slither Woman, and I've seen all the movies, all the horror movies, I know all the stuff, they get like, yeah. So they get very happy, right? Because that's very Japanese culture. So I'm not saying that, I would have made a perfect defense, right, for Mark or whatever. But honestly, though, I think that just by him saying it himself, and say, he doesn't speak Japanese or whatever, but that's what I mean. If he actually said it himself, that would have been a lot better. I'm 100% sure on that if he tried, even in broken, Nihongo, he was like, oh, watashi no, he was like, anu ne, if he was like, if he was doing that stuff, right, he was like, gomen nasai, gomen daishobu, I'm being a little facetious, but I mean, if he was doing that stuff, right, if he was doing it himself, he could have used his friend to write the script, right, and so on, and get Japanese, and then look at the Romanji in the phonetic language, and do his best to speak Japanese himself. That would have been received a lot better. I am 100% sure on that. I'm thinking about it this morning again. I was like, that's an issue he has too, because they would respect him more for trying to do it himself, and it would have felt more honest and more sincere, right, if he did it himself. And even if he would have broken Nihongo, it would have been like, it would have been seen as a better issue, right? For example, one thing the Japanese have in their culture with fair use is the okane, right? It's the money. If you monetize the videos. So for example, if he said that, but this is kind of the tricky thing with Mark, because he wants to make money on the videos, which I could understand. He wants to make money, but if he simply said, I apologize, and I'm gonna stop making money on the videos, which of course would ruin his channel. I'm saying he couldn't do that. But if, for example, he said that would have been like, whoa, the Japanese would have respected that a lot, right? That's like a huge thing for Japanese culture, is you shouldn't make money on, this like copyright infringement. And again, fair use and so on. But for like an example, right? If he was more like, if he was willing to trade something, right, to get the videos back, see what I mean? I'm thinking like Sun Tzu, Art of War, right? If he was willing to trade in the second and third video more with Toei or Japanese people, he's willing to meet them, somewhere in the middle, right? He's willing to have some kind of, I'm not saying have the perfect solution here. I'm just saying that if he could offer them something, right, as a trade value, they would also have that much more. Because again, Japanese culture, you also have to be a little more like, I will give you this, and you will give me that, and we will do it in this thing, right? That's also the whole reason why you can't do it so openly, because you can't just come and say, I will attack you now. You have to be like, hello, can I have a meeting with you on the side, right? Can we have a meeting? Here's my business card. Can we have this meeting on the side, right? If you truly wanted to fix these things, you're going to Japan and be here with business card. No, but you have to go through in this way, right? In Japan and not only in Japan for that matter. It's definitely more East Asian culture. China is very similar, right? South Korea, North Korea, so yeah, they're kind of similar. So there isn't just a Japanese thing. It's also kind of an East Asian culture generally. But I hope because my point here is that you have to kind of address them in that way too. So I think that the more thing, I'm sure that it would have been much better for him to do it in broken Japanese, Nihongo, in broken language, than having this woman, because it also has it has like a weird thing to it. I didn't say it yesterday, but seeing people, but yesterday there was no backlash yet, Yesterday I did the video very early, kinda, so there was no Japanese backlash yet. And I think this thing too also makes it look so weird. Just standing there behind looking like apologetic, but it comes off as less sincere. And the problem then is that I think in his mind, he was probably like, this makes me look like a businessman. I'm standing here looking sorry. This like speech woman is doing my speak, right? Now I'm looking very business-like, right? I think that's what he probably was going for. I'm gonna be business-like with Toei. The problem then is that what you're actually saying is incredibly non-business-like, right? What you were saying is an intelligence tactic that's like illegal in U.S. court and so on too, and also European court. It's like in Ireland, so it's like mostly it's European copyright law and so on. But anyway, he's giving them like, you either do X or I'm gonna do Y to you, right? Boycotting is fine, I said yesterday, but because he's like aggressive, is telling them I'm gonna do this thing to you if you don't give me what I want, right? That's a threat, right? That's an intimidation technique, yeah. That's a very, very offensive to say. So you're doing that while you're also standing there looking, I'm a business professional kind of guy, right? That completely doesn't match. Your body language with the words you're saying doesn't actually compute. But if you did a video by talking from yourself, right, from your own heart in broken Nihongo, and then you threatened them or whatever, right? You kind of disrespected them, but you did it by yourself. I think again then it would have been seen way less threatening and more sincere and more emotional, right? But now he's like trying to mixture and confligate this like issue of I'm gonna be businesslike and have a woman doing my speak for me, right? She's like my my spokesperson here. I'm gonna stand behind her looking like I'm serious, but on the same time I'm giving you very threat serious, right? That makes the threat level go up much higher, and it makes the emotion remove a lot, right? So that also is gonna have a really bad effect on the Japanese people. And then also because it's not giving them anything to go on. Like for example, I've seen people, comment, right? And again, a very common comment from Japan, like, why is he making money on showing so much of like Ishida Oda and Toriyama and so on of their stuff, right? And of course Toei generally, but why is he showing so much of their art and making money, right? That seems wrong to us in Japan, right? So the best way he could have traded is to say, I'm gonna demonetize all my videos, right? If I get them back, for example. That would be the best way to trade. Again, I understand that's a horrible trade for him, but if you can't trade that, then trade something else, right? You have to offer kind of something. So that's why I also think Japanese people are kind of, one word a lot of Japanese have said is arrogance, right? I haven't said yet arrogance, because he's just telling them, do what I want or else, right? He's not giving them any kind of, again, anything to go on. He's not giving Toei any kind of like, there is no, golden middle path. He's not giving them an option to meet him halfway through, right? He's not giving them any option to like, okay, I want this thing, you want that thing, let's meet here, right? So he's not actually doing any, so honestly, the man has some very negative now, but the more I think about it, he's not doing a very good business proposition, right? Because he isn't a business person. He's just offering them ultimatums, offering them do this thing or else. Yeah, there's no like, there is no middle path. There is no how can we combine this deal. So in that aspect, he's incredibly non-business-like, and I think in that sense, people see him as very, very arrogant, right, in Japanese culture, especially. But I have to say, even in my home country of Sweden, for example, I'm a Swedish Swinglish guy. It also would be seen as very, very aggressive. So, but after that matter, though, Sweden and Japan has very similar cultures. in many aspects, Sweden and Japan is very, very similar. Like they take the shoes off and so on. No, but they actually are similar because Sweden is also a lot about this whole you also kind of like Swedes are very passive aggressive, right? I am not though, because I'm very yeah. That's why I don't like Sweden. I moved away from Sweden immediately when I could, right? Because I am not But I'm in Sweden. They are also passive aggressive, and I'm like, screw you, F you, yeah. I'm like that guy, right? And Swedes are like, what's wrong with this guy? He's so open. He's so honest with his emotions, yeah. I'm a very, very honest and a very, very honest person, right? And I'm telling it like it is, or whatever you call it, right? So I never fit into Sweden because, of course, Swedes are incredibly passive aggressive. So they were like, he's telling me that he doesn't like me, you can't do that, so to speak, right? So yeah, I never could fit into Sweden, right? Because I'm an extrovert and whatever. Yeah, it didn't work, right? But Swedish culture is very, very similar in that sense. This also would have been seen in Swedish culture. Swedish culture today is very, I think, Americanized with YouTube and so on, certainly. But still, yeah, in Sweden it's also like you don't tell people they're wrong. In Sweden, in business Sweden, it's like if you tell someone something insulting in a business standpoint, you have to be very apologetic afterwards. I was drunk, I was this, In Sweden, it's very much like, oh, I was so sorry, that was a bad day for me. Anxiety, yeah, they have to be very much. If you insult someone in a kind of business standpoint, right, it is very, very hard. Yeah, like losing face. In Japan, as I mentioned yesterday, it's about saving face, right? In Sweden, it's more about losing face. Yeah, so if you lose face in Sweden, it's very, very embarrassing, right? You don't want people to think you're an idiot or you can't stand. For example, for Swedes, it's very important to be standing by their own, like I say, by themselves, right? So, for example, in Sweden, it's a common issue for some poor people that they don't want to get welfare. It's kind of funny because people, always stress how Sweden has so much welfare and so on, right? But for a lot of people, it's incredibly shameful to go and ask for welfare. This is of course not unique in Sweden, but it's very common in Sweden that a lot of people that actually should get more welfare or could get more welfare, these don't apply. Because it's such an embarrassing thing to have to go and ask welfare, especially for older people. It's very embarrassing for them to have to go and ask for welfare, right? It's like 75 or so on. And that also for that matter, this is not going to be on the video, but something that the old people then in Sweden can't understand with a lot of immigrants is that they take so much welfare, right? So basically, this is going to be on the video, but of course, immigrants have high welfare in Sweden, right? So I'm not discussing the whole left or right or whatever. This is a fact, right? That a lot of new immigrants in Sweden has high welfare, right? And because of reasons, right? I'm not saying it's wrong or right, I'm just saying that's a fact. And then the older people, older generation, they don't actually think they have that. But the reason isn't because they don't think that they can get high welfare. A lot of old folks, they think that they wouldn't ask for welfare. See what I mean? They're so, the culture is so different for these like very old Swedish 75, 85 people. They can't like fathom that a 35-year-old immigrant would want to have welfare. You know what I mean? They're like, what was welfare? That is so shameful. For them, it's just a shame to ask for welfare. They can't grasp that these other people would ask for welfare, right? So, and then immigrants then have less of this, shame, whatever, another culture, right? So a lot of immigrants coming to Sweden, they have another, of course, culture, obviously, because they're coming from another culture, right? And so they don't have that same, like, shame culture that Sweden has, right? Or, I guess, the passive stuff. So for them, it's like, yeah, welfare. If I get welfare, sure, yeah. And again, I don't blame them, because if give me the welfare I can get, right? And honestly, when I have never been on welfare in Sweden, it's shameful, I've never been on welfare in Sweden, but if I had the option of getting maximum welfare, I would take it. I don't care about that. Yeah, I don't have any shame, So I would be like, give it to me. Yeah, but that's what I mean. I'm very anti-Swedish, right, in my personality. So I would be like, yeah, just give me the money, right? But for my granddaughter, it would be like shameful. Yeah, it would be like, I don't want the money. So again, cultures are different. But Sweden and Japan, for example, has similar cultures. And yeah, and on that notion, then I mean, it's kind of like, as I mentioned earlier, the whole money thing and so on. Yeah, people are like, you need to do something about that. But also then, the aggressiveness, right, is seen differently in different cultures. So again, then in Sweden, it also would have been seen as incredibly rude because you're again, they're so passive aggressive Swedes. So they don't want to tell you in your face, right? So doing a letter like this in Swedish, it also would have been seen like, what is he doing? This is like, career suicide in Sweden. Yeah, you would have been like, this is wrong with this person. Yeah. as a Swedish culture person, they would have been, oh my god, this guy, you never. This would be very hard to come back from in Sweden. Yeah, they would be like, what a shameful behavior. Yeah, he's offensively attacking people. If anything, honestly, it might even be ruder in Swedish than in Japanese, because yeah, in Sweden you never talk about your money you make, right? You never talk about losing salary and so on. Yeah, Swedes are kind of fun in that way. That it's incredibly rude to talk about how much money you make and so on in Sweden. It's incredibly rude to discuss your money and your salary and that stuff too. So in Sweden, yeah, they would have been like, what? He's talking about losing money, and that you can't say that. It took our jobs. It's not a thing in Sweden. Yeah, they strike a lot as opposed to left to some extent, but not in the same way. So now that actually would probably be even worse in some aspects. They won't be like, what's wrong with him? But anyway. Long video, guys. I want to address some of the comments. Right, I mentioned earlier. It's coming to the end here. I want to address some of the new stuff. If you're still with me here, like one person, I want to address some of the new stuff that I have been thinking about after reading the comments, of course. Because I do read the comments, right? This is a very small channel, so of course I read the comments. Like I have like one comment. I have like one comment to read per day. No, but of course on this channel, I tend to not do that much videos. As I explained in one of the comments yesterday, the reason why is because I work with these things. So it's not that fun to do videos. It's not that fun. No, but I mean, as I work with this thing, right, for my daily, so picture me sitting on a Friday, like what I said, this Monday and Tuesday, both this week, Monday and Tuesday, I had a 9.5 meeting on both Monday and Tuesday. Okay. 8-hour meeting Monday, like 8.5 hours, and Tuesday like 9 hours or 8.5 hours, roughly, almost 9 hours. So that was like my work day, Monday and Tuesday, right? Like literally, yeah, 8-hour meeting with like half-hour break, okay? Talking about how should this thing work, how should the system work, trying to, as I mentioned earlier, be the spider in the web, because it's like several hundred people in the project I'm working on, trying to be. Because I want to, dox myself here, but my title is like senior service designer, kind of senior experience director, whatever you call it. But like my title I had before Corona was UX design director. So you work a lot with people. I have to draw all the directions and so on. So I have to sit there and be this stuff, and the person closest to me, my closest colleague doing kind of my stuff at the project, has had a lot of sick leave and so on. Don't talk about too much here, but I'm just saying that, so I have even more stuff, on my plate, because I'm kind of and then so on. Right? So after that kind of, oh yeah, I don't want to go and be like, oh, let's do one of these copyright business videos. It's gonna be fun. I much rather just play like Guilty Gear or something. I much rather sit down and just play some Guilty Gear. I play a lot of Guilty Gear stuff right now. Right, I'm a highest ranked player in Axelo. I'm the best. No, but honestly, I love Guilty Gear, and I am Grandmaster League or whatever you call it. It's floor 10 in Guilty Gear. Yeah, I'm the highest ranked you can be in Guilty Gear. So for example, right, when I play fighting games, fighting games are very stressful. They're very like, but it actually kind of relaxes me, because when I play fighting games, I get so focused on that, right? So I can throw away work. I can, oh yeah, my wife, whatever. It's kind of like when I play fighting games, it kind of zones me out from that the world is burning down or whatever. Yeah, it makes me think that, okay, the world is fine, right? I don't care anymore. When I play StarCraft or whatever, same thing, right? I play RTS game. I'm only living in this game right now. Right? I'm very, very focused. I want to play like this Grandmaster level of StarCraft, so I'm very, very focused. So of course, everything else around me, the bills, the stock market, whatever, all that is kind of removed, right? So that's one reason. So in one way, I love to do this kind of videos, right? And I'm gonna do more. I mean, I do it every now and then when I have topic to talk about that. But at the same time, these kind of videos for me, they're fun to talk about, but they also feel kind of like work. They feel kind of like I'm giving you a lecture, right? Like this is a lecture I would give at office, right? Like last month I gave this lecture in a conference. This feels like I'm doing a lecture for my conference, right? They usually are 2 to 3 hours of lecture, so I feel like I'm doing a lecture now, right? And also for that reason, that's probably, even though I'm kind of all over the place in a way, I feel that this video is still watchable, because I am used to giving lectures on like conferences, and I feel I'm doing kind of a lecture. This video is kind of like I'm doing a lecture with a PowerPoint, right? In real life, I would have probably a prepared PowerPoint that would be a little more cool effects, right? But I do feel that this is kind of what I'm doing. leave a comment below, right? I'm kind of in like a lecture mode, you know, kind of yeah. I also used to be, I did research and so on, and I used to do lecture at school. I have worked as, you know, a teacher or, you know, professor kind of guy. My grandpa used to be a professor. He's dead unfortunately, but my grandpa was the professor, and my grandma, his wife, was a teacher too, a language teacher. She taught me French as I was a kid and so on, yeah, and so on. So I'm kind of like used to that whole sitting here talking about shit, right, for a few hours. And I started working as a teacher, like a side teacher, sub teaching back in, like, what was that, 1999, 2000 early. So yeah, I've been working as a teacher, like an offside lecturer and so on, for many years. But anyway, let's talk about the comment section and some of your comments and how it made me reflect on some of the Mark stuff, because I read the comments, right, and I'm actually like, that's a good point. I'm actually, no, but I mean, I think a lot of comments have been very good yesterday, honestly. Nothing to be like, please leave a comment, but I think it's a very good comments, because some of the comments made me really think, that's a great point. I didn't actually think about that until you commented it, and now when you say it, it makes me much more cynical on Mark or whatever. It actually, to some extent, changed my opinion, right, about him or the situation. Or maybe, I'll say it made me go like that, but I'm saying it made me go a little bit, you know, oh yeah, you know, this is a good point. So I think there are some stuff that I've been thinking about, and then seeing other people have a similar opinion like me, right, or seeing that people have been thinking about it in some other aspect, but in a similar thing that I was thinking about, I definitely feel like, yeah, you know, it's a good point. So yeah, absolutely leave a comment, right, and, you know, discuss what I'm saying and so on, of course, and maybe I make more videos, whatever, right? But let's talk about some of the comments, and of course, sorry, I'm not gonna address every comment, even I addressed the fat and the waifu comment the most earlier. But I think that waifu comment was just a perfect example of reverse halo effect, because someone attacking me, it's fine to hate me, you can hate me much you want, honestly I don't really care that much, right? You can hate me much you want, I don't really care that much, I just think it's kind of funny. But that comment for me was just so perfect example of the halo, because again then, the comment was just like so brainless. So it's like, oh yeah, but you're insulting my hot wall behind me. It's like, is that an argument? At least address what I said, right? Don't just call me fat and I don't know, call him big ag or something. Call my Aqua my senpai. Like, well, that doesn't make no sense, right? Here it's Rengaku, here it's Bleacher. Yeah, it's of course the Rengaku. You know, gonna have the Ghislaine, right? Gonna have the Yurichi. Yeah, put on the waifu shirt today. You know, look at that Miroko there. Look at that, you know, Merlona face, look at that Aries, you know, the Aries biceps, right? Now pull out the, you know, look at that Aries biceps. Oh, look at that. Oh, come on, give it that. Oh, there we go. Yes, the Aries biceps, you know, the miracle biceps. Come on, you know, come on, comment me for my waifus. Yeah, not insult my waifus, man. Not insult my goddamn waifus. No, but it's obviously a comment that is, for me, is hilarious. Honestly, I'll say one thing before I talk about you guys' comments here. I never understood comments from a logical standpoint when, for example, let's say I play a StarCraft 2 game, right, or StarCraft whatever, but I play a StarCraft 2. So I beat someone in StarCraft 2 with a cheese, okay, it's a lame strategy. I beat someone that, and afterwards they add me, and like, F you man, you were a lame cannon rusher! I never understood that kind of behavior. I understand, even if I master degree in human behavior or economy, I never understood that behavior in a sense, because I guess it's so anti-economic, right? Human behavior economy is more about human pattern. I read a lot about, you know, pattern design, pattern behavior, but still, it's an obvious pattern because they come from rage, right? But it doesn't make any sense from like an economical standpoint, because if someone defeats you in like whatever strategy that you don't like, telling them that you're pissed off, did you beat me and you're lame or whatever, the effect is that you're gonna do it again, right? Because if I defeat you and you get angry, oh, the cheese was so lame, it's so imba, there, right? Yeah, I'm gonna do it more. I'm like, oh, it's imba. He's telling him it's imba. Let me do it again, you know. Then that just confirms to me that's a good strategy, because it makes you emotional, right? And it makes you lose the game. So I'm like, I'm gonna do that more. That sounds super irritating to you. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty. Let me try to do it once more. Yeah, you know what I mean. So I always think it's funny on the internet when people do those comments. They're like, oh, yeah, you're wrong because you're fat. I'm like, okay, so you don't have an argument. You know what I mean? But especially in those games, people add you afterwards and they attack you, and you're like, okay, that just makes me, I'm just laughing at you. I'm just enjoying it. It's always gonna motivate me to play lame again, right? Because if you think it's lame, it means it's a good strategy, probably, because you can't handle it, right? So yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I remember once when I was playing a lot of Cervantes in Soul Calibur, people couldn't handle his teleport attacks, and they complained about it. You know what I do? I do it more. I'm sorry, I'm just a bastard, but if you complain about that thing seems to be broken, oh, I'll do it more than. Yeah, oh, you can't handle that shit? Let me do it again. That's how I am. I'm like, oh, you can't handle my my attacks on you? Yeah, okay. But anyway, I want to address some of the comments, right? Maybe I see your name in the comments if I don't care that much, but Bizarre, calling me fat is the best comment, and so on. No, the first thing I really do want to comment here is from, and I'm sorry if I won't, of course, cover every comment, right? It's not that many comments, but it's a long video, so I want to focus on some few points here. So the first thing that I think is very interesting, honestly, that really made me reflect over the situation is, and also why I brought, my waifu here, my favorite Dragon Ball waifu. Oh god, I can do it. There we go. C18. Box for little damage. Yeah, I ordered thing on the post. So the first comment I really want to address here I am, is from Sausage Lord, and this is honestly I feel that really that made me really reflect over the Mark situation more, right? And that's because why isn't he apologizing to Akira Toriyama, that of course is the creator of waifus like C18, the original waifu? And I keep saying C18 because in Swedish she is called Cyborg 18, which makes a lot more sense than Android 18, because Cyborg, if of course she has like daughter called Maron, she can give birth, right? So in she's a cyborg because she's a rebuilt human. Dr. Gear is a cyborg, right? In Sweden they just call her Cyborg 18, which again it makes much more sense because she's a cyborg. I don't know what they call it, Android. It's an English mistranslation, I feel. But because in Japanese, I can't remember it's called in Japanese now again. But it's not in Japanese. I think it's like, isn't it? Okay, I can't remember now. I'm so tired. No, but in Japanese they call her like man-made human kind of thing. Yeah, if you translate that word. I can't remember what it's calling it now, but the word they use in Japanese, I believe is translated to like, man-made human, or like fake human or something, if you translate it more like directly. So it's sometimes in Japanese. So it doesn't mean android or cyborg. It kind of means like, created human, or like, fake human, yeah, something like that. I think that's more correct. I don't want to Google it, but I think that's what it is in Japanese. And I think she is called Android 18, Cyborg 18 in some other languages too. Yeah, but it's called like, no, I'm cheating here. Jinso Ningen, yeah. Yeah, it's called like Jins, yeah, because Ningen means human, so I'm cheating a bit here, right? But if I Google this, no, but I'm just like, no, let's get me the kanji. No, yeah, get me the kanji. Get me the kanji for that language. Yeah, exactly. Man-made. Yeah, exactly. Man-made. Jinsu. Yeah, exactly. So, exactly. I'm right. No, but okay. So that's Spider-Man. So in Japanese, that's what I mean. It's called Jinsu. Yeah. So god damn it. Spider-Man is not Spider-Man does not agree. In Japanese language, actually, in Japanese language. Her name isn't android or cyborg, it's Jinsu Ningen. So Ningen means human and Jinsu means man-made. Yeah, it's like as I mentioned, I couldn't remember the word Jinsu, but yeah, her name means more like, created human, or like fake human, right? Or artificial human. So if you read it like straight up from Japanese, her name is more like, man-made 18, right? Or like fake human 18 or something, or potentially then artificial 18 or something, right? It doesn't mean cyborg, it doesn't mean android, it means like, man created human or something. So the English translation of android is clearly wrong because she's a cyborg. I'm just saying, and in Swedish she is called cyborg, which is technically correct because again she can give birth and so on. Dr. Gero rebuilds himself, right? He's a human with mechanical parts. That's cyber technology. That's a cyborg. It's a cyborg. It's not an android. However, Android 16 is an android, but he's his build, right? Yeah. It's a little tricky actually with Japanese and Android 18, because 16 I mean, sorry, because 16 he's just a man-made. Yeah, he's purely an android, right? He had no human. counterpart, or whatever you call it. Dr. Gero didn't rebuild 16. This is a robot. He's a robot, right? An android robot. So they are not the same thing. But that, of course, comes from the Japanese language. That Akira Toriyama, when he wrote Dragon Ball, he's using again the man-made human, language, right? He's like man-made human, artificial human, which could mean both cyborg or android in English or whatever. In Swedish, otherwise, android or cyborg, yeah. So it's the same word, android for android. So, but they used cyborg, which I always call her C18, and I refuse to change it because I feel that I am technically correct here. That she is a cyborg, so I'm not gonna stop saying it. But I hear people saying it to me all the time when I'm talking about Dragon Ball. They're like, "Why do you call it C18? It's A18. It's 18 or." I was like, no, they always call it C18 or, Cyborg 18 when I grew up as a kid because, that is what she is. Anyway, that was a random rant, but I want to address that because she's my favorite waifu in Dragon Ball. I always loved C18, and I do love all there's a hentai artist that does like the MILF stuff with the Cyborg 18 basically all the time. He doesn't do Dragon Ball Dushinis, but every woman, you know what I'm talking about, every woman he does, this is a Hengaka, and he does this his own man-made, his own stuff, right? It's unrelated to Dragon Ball completely, but basically every MILF he draws at one of them, but there's like 2 different MILF types, and every MILF he draws is like either a black-haired woman that has longer, kind of like a Nico Robin, kind of similar, longer dark hair and so on. He makes that character, or he makes straight up like 18 MILF, like always. So he does like maybe 20 Dushinis, or Hengaka. You know who I'm talking about. You know who you are. And like 15 of them is basically Android 18, Cyborg 18. Yeah, like it is. It is straight up. He just does that stuff. That guy clearly, he's like, it takes 18 and puts her in like if she had a stepson or something. Whatever. Yeah, come at me with my waifu wall. Anyway, what I want to address here. In the sausage lord, perfect name for this session is sausage, in the comment section here, that I definitely don't think I speak against Mark, and I didn't think about that until I read the comment. It was a very good comment, and why I of course addressed it here, is that sausage lord comment is, why didn't he, apologize to Akira Toriyama, and also the other, of course, authors of the stuff he's done, right? And that's a very good point, because I was thinking about it from my, cynical worldview, and I was like, it's kind of weird that he doesn't, that he's, in his first video, he's like, I'm gonna boycott. His first video, he didn't say, he didn't threaten that, of course, but he was like, I'm gonna boycott Dragon Ball, right? But he was like, I'm still gonna do One Piece. I never liked that, right? Immediately I was like, that sounds like a business thing. I'm gonna stop doing Dragon Ball, but I'll still do One Piece because it's still ongoing right there. That to me sounded like a lack of principle, right? Because you're still gonna do Toei stuff, but you're gonna selectively not do Dragon Ball, even though didn't he build the channel on Dragon Ball, right? To my understanding. And I've seen he did this before, right? But he built his channel on almost mostly Dragon Ball, right? Like mostly, right? So if it's kind of weird to be like, I'm gonna do some of the Toei stuff. That's what he said first, right? And then when I read this comment, I was like, yeah, it's actually very strange that. I find it very strange, honestly, especially if you know who Oda is. Ishida Oda is very non in the public, right? Akira Toriyama is more in the public, and so for that matter, yeah, and is more. It's a very weird. Of course, there are other authors too, right? He's doing Ishiyama, right? He's doing Tetai stuff. He's doing Hiro, isn't he doing My Academia and so on, right? So etc. Yeah, he does other mangas too, right? But of course, my point is that as I was thinking about it yesterday, I was like. Yeah, like why didn't he do like a general mangaka apologize? So why didn't he do like, please, if you understand creative work or whatever, please, give me support, right? If you're Akira Toriyama, Ishida Oda, etc. I won't talk all the names here, but you get my point. Why didn't he like address all the authors? Why didn't he do like either he could have said, or he should have probably said all their names, and then just talked about it in general, that he asking one of these. Artists to help people, right? That would have been a better, I would say, it's general addressing it. But instead he was like, I'm only talking to Oda. And I didn't actually think about it that much until you did this comment. But now, afterwards, yeah, it makes me very cynical. And I think that also comes back to this whole Japanese respect, right? The rest so on. Because that also is kind of arrogant and rude. It's like, why did you ignore on the other comments. And I think most Japanese people that see these videos, they probably think he's only a One Piece guy, right? You know what I mean? But if you actually know the truth, which some of them do, and I've checked out the actual facts or whatever, I've gone through his videos, they probably can easily see that he's a Dragon Ball guy, first and foremost, isn't he? Correct me if I'm wrong, but he built his channel on Dragon Ball, right? Primarily. And then he's gone over to One Piece like last year and some other stuff and so on too, right? But he's like done other Attack on Titan and so on, yeah. So, yeah, it's very strange, actually. And that comes off as, I think also it's actually rude that he's only addressing one mangaka, but he's using, I don't know how many manga he has covered in his channel. I have no idea, but you know my point. Like, all of those mangas he has focused on should be addressed, right? At least the ones that are, how I say it. No, I think it's fair to everyone. Some people might say that he should do all the Toei ones, but no, he should do everyone. Because if he has videos about Attack on Titan and is making money on those, right? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying from a Japanese standpoint, again from a cultural standpoint, that is seen as wrong, right? If he has a lot of, because doesn't he have Attack on Titan videos and he's showing anime clips and so on, right? He's showing a lot of copyright for Attack on Titan. So that a Japanese person is gonna see that as the average, Japanese person, right, in the culture of Japan, it's gonna see that as kind of weird, right? So he should also have addressed that he's doing that and apologizing, that he loves the work of all these artists, right? So that is to me a very strange thing, and the more I think about it, the more it seems. I'm just, this is like my reflective party, right? End of the lecture. Now I'm taking your questions, right, from last week. Maybe the stream next time. Yeah, I'm taking your questions, right? I'm just like, in the end of the line, I don't understand that. Yeah, it's a great question, and I can't answer it because I'm just like, for the first part, as I mentioned, it's obvious that he wants to keep doing One Piece because it's keep on going. We have Wano and so on, right? It keeps going, so it's better for the money, right, than the Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is finished, but it's still. But the apologizing is very weird because if he loses like 100 Dragon Ball videos and 50 One Piece videos, wouldn't you actually focus most on Akira Toriyama? Wouldn't that be the person you would mostly ask for help? It also could ask for help for the other, again, mangakas, right? Not only these Toei guys, but also the other ones too. So that's very, very strange. And also, I think, honestly, from an argumentative standpoint, this is, of course, me very spitballing here, but I do feel that Akira Toriyama is more likely to help him. That is a very random thought in my head, but I feel that Akira Toriyama has been more open in the public and so on. Uda has been very, very, private. He's been very, very like almost gonna show up in any interviews, right? He's very, very famous, right? He's very, which I of course respect. I'm just saying, right, that Uda is very known for his very, I am very distant from you guys over here. Uda is very known for that because he's so famous and so big, right? That he's very much takes the breaks and so on, right? But so I think Akira Toriyama is also more likely to help him, just from the sense that he actually probably would have a higher chance of seeing the video. And Akira Toriyama is also more of a retired, he's more like out of the business, right? Kind of, yes, they do Dragon Ball stuff, but he's kind of like, he's done the Dragon Ball and he's finished, right? And he has an easier time to maybe come in from the side, where Uda is working, all the time with currently One Piece, right? And they have the other games and movies and everything. And I think Uda is more on the side, right? Which also has possibly give him less power, though. That is true. Uda has more of a power, of course, over Toei than Akira Toriyama has, or whatever. Right? Of course he has, because he's more like, he's the biggest guy and he has more projects going. That is true. But at the same time, I feel that Uda would have a much lower chance of actually helping him, also from being that, because he has to be more, collaboration between them, right? Between him and the company. Akira Toriyama is kind of more like retired in that sense, right? But also, I think my main point is he's also more of a public figure, I guess, than Shida Uda. So I think that is also, from a strategy aspect, it's also kind of weird. But mostly, yeah, probably seen as weirdly disrespectful. That he's just ignoring. If he's gonna apologize to Uda, you have to apologize to Dragon Ball. You have to apologize. Because if you're gonna apologize for One Piece, you have to also apologize for Dragon Ball. You have to. Certainly so. You can't just like. And I'm trying to phrase this from a Japanese standpoint, right? But I think it's fair even in American or Irish culture too, right? That if you take someone's work, again, I'm not saying what he's doing is wrong from a moral or a fair use standpoint. I'm just saying that if I did a movie review, right, of, let's say, Spider-Man, and then I also did a movie from Batman, whatever, right? And I took them down. And then I only did a video about Stan Lee, and I'm like, I'm sorry, Stan Lee, I'm sorry, Stan Lee. And I didn't address, you know, yeah, like the Batmans, there's two characters of Batman, and I didn't address those people. It would be very strange, right? I was like, ooh, Stan Lee, or I didn't address, you know, Jack Kirby or whatever, right? Not the people that have been Steve Ditko and so on, people involved in Marvel and so on. I only addressed one person. That would have been seen, I think, as strange, right? Why am I only addressing one of the person that's involved in these reviews, right? Yeah. Why am I comparing like Spider-Man with Batman, right? Should I address all the artists and actors that has been involved, that has been important for these movies, or like the general characters? It's very weird to single out Oda, actually. And I think it's weird too, as I mentioned then, because I think Oda has the least likely chance to actually do anything. He has the most power, I suppose, but he has the most power, but probably the person that is the hardest to get to. Yeah, like, yeah, he has the least, probably the highest power, but the least likelihood he will help you. And as I said yesterday, a huge issue is that by insulting Toei, there's no way Oda can do anything, because now he has to fight Toei, right? I say it again briefly, but if he only did the Oda video, on the Oda part, he might have a chance to get help from Oda, even though very, very unlikely. But first attacking Toei in typical Japanese no faction, right? Toei is now gonna be, this guy is our enemy, right? So if Oda now is gonna talk to Toei to help him, there's no way. That's also probably the biggest strategy fault of the whole idea, right? To attack one of them and ask all for help when they're both in a team, right? Picture it as again a war thing. Say that you want to go to war with Austria. Okay, so you're playing as let's say, where are we? We are the Papa State. Okay, we're the Papa State in Italy, and I want to fight Austria. Okay, so and Austria is allied with I guess Hungary and like the Commonwealth. Probably are, they're probably enemies, but whatever. Let's say that Austria and Great Britain are allies. Okay, so they're allies. So you're playing as France or whatever. So you're France. You want to fight, you know, Austria, right? It's not a good idea to go, but you need Great Britain to help you. You want Great Britain to like team up to fight Austria. Like, man, they're so powerful. Hold their own empire. I got the inbound. I want help, right? Yeah. You don't go and insult Great Britain. You're like, screw you, British people. You don't go and insult them and then ask them to help you, right? Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of weird. And especially then, or in this case then, that you want to ally up. Okay, please help me, Austria. I don't want to fight you. I want to be your friend, okay? And Austria's like, yeah, we might be able to be friends. But then you go and insult their best friend, Great Britain. You're like, screw you, people. I don't want you. Screw you, and your religion is bad. I'm a Catholic. You're Protestants. You're idiots. And they're like, oh, okay, so you hate us, you know what I mean? Then also it's gonna be like, why are you insulting my friend over there? I'm not gonna ally up with you now. I'm not gonna help you in your war if you can't ally up with me. You know what I mean? It's kind of basically like that. Like if he wants Oda's help, and Oda is one country here, right? Oda is one power position, and he wants him to help against other power position. But these two power positions are allies. They are best friends. You can't just do that. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, yeah. Why did he address only Oda? It doesn't make any sense. Very weird. It's like, I love the name, honestly, Game Changer. This video only makes it worse for him. DB is probably that, the Game Changer. Yeah, it only makes the change worse. It only makes him hit himself harder. Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting himself, right? Yeah, but it's a love word, you know, Game Changing. Yeah, game does. Yeah. Creamigma, I agree with you. Yeah, it's straight up right. It's puzzling, very bizarre. The word I kept using myself was bizarre, right? It's bizarre is the word I like to use in this situation. And I think the Ilias corner here, so it's a great comment here, long, well-written comment that I of course commented on. So the Ilias corner, which I think makes a good point here. I assume Jennifer's man here, but he has it here. But it's coming from that aspect of like language, right? Of course, it's not something I addressed several times in the video already. But I think it's a good comment in the sense that you're coming from that very, very explicit language, like I said, right? And I talked about it yesterday and today too, with the legal language and how you talk to someone, how you address someone, and how you actually like say someone, right? And that's kind of what I meant earlier, and I kind of want to go into that with the Japanese woman and him and so on. That language is very important, and some words in some language mean something else in another language, right? So I worked on a game again a few years ago. And when I think that was the common merit. So I was in a game, and when we translated, they had translated like an insult from English to Swedish, and in English it was one. I won't say it here then because of not copyright, community. Yeah. So the insult in English wasn't that bad. It was like it was okay. But in Swedish, if you translate it word by word, it was incredibly offensive. They were like, oh my god, But it's correct translation. Yeah, but you can't. It doesn't mean the same thing, right? The meaning, because this was a children's game too. A children's game. It was a children's game, right? And so you can't have too rude insult. It has to be compact, right? The insult can't be too rude in a children's game, of course. So again, then in English, the insult was like a 2 out of 10 insult, right? Yeah, so it's kind of playfully. It wasn't that bad, but straight translated to Swedish was like a 10 out of 10 insult, and we had to remove it, right? We had to, and the problem with this thing then, from an actual business standpoint, was that in this case, not only had they done the text, they actually had recorded it. And so some idiots in studio, I would say was, but it was idiots in another country. They had also had like audio recorded it. So they haven't even thought about it in an audio studio. So we were like, we can't publish this thing. You can't have an insult. We're gonna get reprimanded by Nintendo and Sony and so on. We can't have this thing because we have to send it to the actual companies that have the consoles, right? And they have to pass it. They're gonna tell us that it's not allowed to have it for a children game. So we were like, why do you record it for? You can't like record this audio string. You're idiots. Like you're completely stupid. We're very, very, very stupid of them. And so we were like, okay, so you should have said this first. And also it's kind of stupid because even before it happened, I had received like an Excel sheet of all the text in the game, like all the translation and so on, all the copyright and so on. I had received it before, and I spent a few days going over this Excel sheet. It was like 900 lines or whatever. And I spent a few days going over it, and I already told them that you can't write the thing in Swedish or whatever. You can't do this thing. It's gonna break, not copyright in this case, then, but like breaking whatever. Like I don't recall it, but it's like or whatever. Nintendo and someone, they have some kind of like children. Yeah, it's gonna push the age thing to the next. It's gonna push. It's gonna be PG-13, it's gonna be PG-7. Yeah, so go up, right? So you can't do that. So I already told them that, and I sent the mail to them telling them that, and still they went and recorded the old translation. So they were very, very big mistake for them, and very annoying. Because then we had to be like, oh, you have to go and re-record now, right? And they're like, oh, but it's cost a lot of money. We have to go back and do this thing and so on. And then we were like, yeah, but you guys are idiots. I told you not to do it, and I'm not gonna pay you to re-record it. And they're like, but we need money because it's costing. Yeah, but you recorded the wrong stuff. You need to re-record these 3 voice lines, right? And we're not gonna pay you for that. You do that, we get no pay, right? So you have to go back and forth and so on. But then they want extra pay, right, to spend another 2 days in the studio or whatever. But I'm like, but you did the wrong thing. I told you to do it, so you have to, and so on. So that's like a typical thing, right? That some words in one language might mean this thing, and it means up here if you do it in wrong. So that was wrong by the translation studio, and it was wrong by the audio, the actual voice recording studio. Because I told them before, don't do that. Do this Basically, I had sent them like a rewritten, right? I rewrote the Excel sheet to be like more proper, children game language, and they still went with the first Excel sheet. So I was like, you took the wrong Excel sheet, because there was some other issues too that I had already, recorded, fixed in Japanese and so on too, that this has to go, this should be this. There's more stuff I had also fixed, right, between these two, and they were like, obviously they took the first sheet and not the rewritten, like properly checked sheet by me, because I was doing, that I was reviewing the sheet, right, and I was reviewing the translation and so on, yeah, from the English, Swedish, Japanese and so on, right, yeah. So I was like, I have reviewed it, and I sent you, and not to you, but to your manager and to the company, I sent you the reviewed script, right? You went and used the first script anyway, so you have to pay for that. I'm not gonna pay for that. We from our side, we're gonna pay for your mistake, right? And that because did it become a legal battle, right? But then that slows down the production, because you have to go back and forth between that. Like they want more pay, we refuse to pay them, right? But of course, what we do then, we do with the company I work for in that case, what we do is that, well, you want pay, right? You want pay for this 1 month of recording. You get no pay, right? So either you do work 2 days for free, or you get nothing, right? Yeah. So basically, we're gonna pay you for 30 days of work, or 2 days of work. If you're gonna pay 30 days, right? We're gonna pay you minus 2 days, right? We're gonna pay you those 2 extra days, but then we pay you for 1 month, right? Or of course, you don't get any money, right? Because they want to get paid, for an extra week or whatever. I mean, you're not gonna do that. It's your fault for doing the wrong thing, right? You've been told to, think about the translation, rewrite that shit, right? And he didn't do it anyway. So, that shit is very common, even in professional setting, that people don't follow the language, and then it becomes a lot of mistakes, right? Because they didn't think about that this word and this other language means something completely else. And it's very important to, think about that stuff, right? It's just very obvious. You have to think about this stuff and really but what does this mean in this language, right? And in this case that I'm talking about in my experience, it was extra dumb because not only me, but me and a few other people had, because this is a very expensive, like $1 million kind of thing, right? Me and a few other people, me and 2 other people that I work with in my department had reviewed the document and told them this is wrong, and we had reviewed it. So the company is paying us money, right, to spend, I guess, 2.5 work days to review it. So that's 20 hours of work time for me, and 60 hour work time you spent reviewing the document, and you just ignored what we told you after our review, right? So incredibly bad from them, right? So I'm not. So again, I guess in most defense, people even in the people do our mistakes and so on, right? But you have to be very, very important to think about stuff and follow stuff, right? So specific language is very important. And like I said in my comments there, and I kind of jokingly said about it, and I think that's very true to say though. I don't know who this person is that read the Japanese for him, but I have to say, right, I'm just a little bit why didn't she tell him that? Wait, you can't say that to them. It's going to be really rude in my home country, Maybe she's, I don't know, but felt a little bit like she should have been wait a minute. But that's kind of, as I referred to earlier, I think people were kind of fun in that if you are like me, critiquing Mark and generally critiquing the strategy they're using, right, which is very bad. If you're critiquing that, you're against Mark and so on. But in my perspective, I'm actually the most for him because I'm not on yes man. I'm telling you, don't do that. If he asked me to translate this thing, I would be like, I can translate this for you, probably, but I wouldn't say this thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, I would have been like, you want me to say this? I'm not gonna say this. Yeah, I would have been that person. It's like, why do you want me to say this thing? This doesn't make any sense, right? And that's probably a problem. And coming back to that halo effect that the video I feel is half about here, right? That if you have the halo effect and you as a person too get too much ingrained into your own halo effect, it's also probably kind of hard to not only have negative feedback that they had from the Japanese community generally, but also probably hard that I think you do get a lot of yes men, right? This is generally an issue of being rich or famous or whatever, right? That you get the halo effect and everyone loves you, everyone sees you as the messiah, and then people just tell you what you want to hear, right? So I think there's an issue too that I'm using very bad theory crafting here, but he told this woman that, okay, translate these things, right? And she's like, yes, boss, and she doesn't, right? But if she was less of a, infused in this halo effect, what I'm guessing, but I will say it's probably true, she might have been like, I can translate this thing, but what you're saying here, again, doesn't compute with reality in Japan, right? So I can say the thing for you, but why do you want me to say the thing, right? Why do you want me? Let's wait a little bit. Yeah, why do you want me to say these things, right? That's a much better question to ask. Not, you shouldn't just translate. And if anything, that kind of comes back to what I mentioned earlier, right? Where this company has failed that translation. They translated a word from English to Swedish that made it very, very offensive. So those people have clearly just read the text and translate, but they haven't processed what does it actually mean. I can't just do the translation word by word. I have to actually localize it, correct it, right, to the Swedish culture. However, though, that's why they need someone like me to sit there and read through the documents and be like, that's wrong, copyright, that's wrong, that's an insult, that's bad in the Toei. Because for example, when I worked in that company, I read through a lot of terms of services. I reviewed a lot of terms of services for different IP stuff, for example, right? Because it's kind of weird, but basically they know that their writers are bad, so they're like, we have people writing this stuff, right? And then we have to hire people to review the writing so it's properly, right? Yeah. That being said, though, it makes more sense that I am not writing it myself, because you can hire 10 cheap writers, right? And they can write for you. You hire 1 or 2 of me, they are more expensive to hire, and we review the writing, right? So because the writing is easier, and having the knowledge and being this is wrong, that's probably more so. And it also means that you have someone writing it, hopefully doing it correctly, and then having someone review that, it also reduces the chance for a mistake, right? Because it's like a double thing, right? You have someone, and then someone also reviews what I do. You know what I mean? That you have several, 2 people, 3 of me, right, reviewing those stuff right together, because we all review the documents, you know, one by one, right? And then we discuss them and so on, and then we, you know, mix it all together, right? So you have a lot of like, you know, fail safety going over the faults, right? However, in this case, as I talked about, they still did a mistake, but that's more on the company that we send the review back to, not, you know, looking at the review. Yeah, they ignore the review, right? So those were idiots. So we reviewed it for you. We spent like a work week reviewing it, right? And then you ignored it. You're complete morons, right? So it's like, why did we do that for you if you just failed it and now you want more money? Screw you, right? You're gonna have to pay for it. You're gonna pay for our extra bills, yeah. Forget about it. But I've been there a lot too, for that matter. I'm talking about here, but I've been in a lot of situations where I feel that companies, so don't get me wrong, right? Not only is the world is dark out there, I've been in a lot of situations where I feel that some companies are doing mistakes on purpose because they want to extend their contract. So it's like, have you finished your work yet? And they're like, no, we have this bug over here. Like, why haven't you fixed that bug? They're like, oh, you know, we need more money. You won't get any more money. It's a very, very common issue that a lot of these contract studios, so on, they actually do a bad job on purpose. Because then they can be like, we need another week, right? We need to get paid for another week or 2 months or whatever. Yeah. So they try to like milk you for money, and it's very important to be like, you won't get any money, or this is how you get extra money, or whatever. It's very important to kind of specify that and so on. Very, very important. So write contracts for that matter, right? Between the companies are incredibly important. Very, very important. And again, that goes back to like the ILS commerce with language, right? When you write this contract to, not only contracts like with corporate or whatever, but when you actually write the actual, I mean, like arrangement contract, how to work together between two companies, right? You have to be very, very correct and explicit, so they can't like sue you or fool you or whatever but afterwards, right? And for that matter, I haven't addressed that, but Mark first mentioned that he was working with Toei. That was then not true. I don't understand exactly what he meant in the second video. I don't really understand how it works, right? And he hasn't explained that. But that is kind of coming back to what I mentioned here, right? That he is very something here, but I don't understand. Like to my understanding, it was like some other company that he helped out, right, to do some whatever Dragon Ball promotion or whatever, right? But that company itself, so it's not Toei, right? It's like an other, you know, company in between, right? And they like paid him to do some ads or whatever, promo, whatever, yeah. So he didn't work for Toei. It's worth with like, you know, other subcontractors in between, right? So legally, it's a very big difference, and he's like a consultant for the company, yeah. But anyway, yeah, saying you worked with Toei then, and then doing the second video saying it was like I guess an illegal term of fabrication, right? It also makes him look bad, right, in the second video. But I probably did say it in the last video, but I mean I don't know exactly what it means. Yeah, it's just too muddy for me, and that's in part of my critique here, and also for the third video, because that stuff, for example, was muddy. That what do you mean? Who did you actually work for? You know, who did you actually work for? How is that Toei relation? And you know, like not what your salary was, but you know, how did this actually compute this connection between you and not Toei? Like, what was it? You know, was it like this with two things, or was it like that, or was it like in between? Was it like this, right? How is that connection? That should have been explained by him a lot better, instead of saying that Toei, you know, worked with him and then it didn't work with him and so on. That's also one of those things that if I was him doing that third video, I would have explicitly explained that relationship between him, Toei, and his other contractors, right? So for example, has Toei paid him? Has Toei ever worked with him in any direct way? Has Toei does Toei know who is or whatever, right? And so on, because that definitely also is one of those legal issues where he claims something and then he has to like retract on that thing, right? And also makes the second video look worse. But I will argue that the third video should have addressed that, because it's like a very muddy thing, and I don't understand what's happened there really. And that's also one of the reasons, I guess, going back to this first comment I put about like don't speak, shut up, kind of, you know, idea, is that because in the first video you said something that is a fabrication, then, right, of the consulting or whatever, right? I don't know exactly what it means. I don't think anyone knows what it means, but yeah, you know, whatever, it wasn't as he said it was, right? With how it was with the company. So that is definitely also kind of like a liable for defamation, right? Like you're saying something about the company, you're claiming something about the company, but then it was false, or maybe it was true, but it seemed to be false. But how, to what extent is it false? I have no idea, because he hasn't explained it. He basically said something in the first video that in the second video he completely retracted on, but again didn't explain it in the third video. He apologized, but didn't explain that bit over there. That definitely is also part of that whole liable defamation thing, right? So there's also one issue for the third video. I'm like, okay, because I am definitely wondering from my standpoint, how did that business transaction look, right? At least from like a macro level. Like how is that macro? What is the connection between you and Toei in the first thing? And it kind of comes back again to, as the second video talked about, you have to hire like a lawyer or something or business aid, because those kind of comments, the words, a lawyer would have said, but what do you actually mean here? Do you want to say this thing? Do you want to go out and say that you work for Toei if it's not true, right? Do you want to say that, or what do you mean? Okay, you kind of work for Toei, because you could have framed that. But I did a Dragon Ball promotion, right, last month. Why did they, But the way he said it, he said that maybe I'm wrong here out, but I think he said that he directly worked for Toei, and then he completely backtracked on that, right? So that's again some of those things that you should have a lawyer go over the script and be like, this is true. Can you prove this thing? Right? We have evidence of this thing, yeah. Because otherwise you're just saying maybe slander, defamation kind of thing. Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? And I think that actually is one of the bigger issues with the second video. Think about it. The more I think about it, it's just kind of weird. Honestly, it's just kind of weird. When I'm wondering how that works out, right? And I wish he had addressed it in a proper way in the third video. It's kind of like no, I'm like a. But it's true though. I mean, I don't want to be too insulting or whatever, right? But when you do this stuff, with again the language thing, you have to be very, very explicit. You have to be very direct, and you have to be, saying in Swedish, ordmärkare. If you are besserwisser, you focus on that single word. What does that word mean, right? But that's kind of really what I'm thinking here, because the more I'm thinking about what he did, what he said, the more I'm like perplexed on what does that actually mean, right? And then in the third video, and this is what I mean, ordmärkare in Swedish. In the third video, he says like, it's time to be honest, and I wanna be. He's like, I'm gonna be pretty transparent. I'm gonna be honest, right? It's a very short video, but he does the video. It's just audio, right? But he's like, I'm gonna be transparent. I'm gonna be this thing. But then I am now like with your commentary and so on. I'm like, but you weren't transparent, because I don't understand what you meant with the Toei thing. Like I generally don't, right? I don't think anyone really knows what he meant with that. So you're not transparent, right? And so on, right? So it's also an issue, right? Because it's clearly like I'm wondering about that, and I'm wondering the more I think about it, and I see people's comments like, yeah, the language, this thing, and so on. Is yet another one of these language issues. It would be better if you say I'm apologizing, right, without saying I'm gonna be transparent, because you aren't transparent. In technical terms, I wouldn't say so, because I don't feel that he has been at least not transparent on that part. It's also wrong on how YouTube operates, right? So it's also kind of like that I already talked about yesterday. But and for that, man, I say that again, it needs to be pointed out, even though no one has gone this far in the video anyway. Right? But I say it again, because I see this issue all the time on YouTube. So maybe I'll make another video where I just explain what is copyright, what is guidelines, whatever. But I see the issue still, people, or still I should be surprised, that people keep saying he has like community guideline strikes or whatever, right? Or takedowns, blocks and so on. He had blocks, not takedowns, and it's completely irrelevant how community guideline strikes works, which is like if that report or something. And that is something I've seen people still, like claim and so on, right? But look at the community rules. Like, it's not the same thing, so that's irrelevant. But yeah, people keep doing that thing for whatever reason. What more we have? Well, people need to stop doing these things in the comments here. You need to stop doing this whole argument of his family and friends or whatever. That's not an argument. You need to stop doing that. I'm not so harsh for saying that thing, but that has never been an argument to begin with. You can never, I said it probably yesterday too, but I said it in the comment section too. You can never defend anyone saying that he has a daughter, she has cancer or whatever. It's not an argument. I know it's harsh, but it's a reality. So I say it here to be not to be mean, not to be that I want Mark to lose or whatever, or that I hate his family or whatever. I'm not saying that, right? So I'm probably in that context now. I'm not saying that I want bad stuff to happen to his family, of course not. But I'm just saying that I'm living in reality, and your argument in court can never be this guy has a family. You know what I mean? It's not an argument. You can't go and rob a bank and say, but I had a sick daughter. This kind of sounds like something that a bad guy would do in a Spider-Man movie, the Scorpion. His daughter has cancer. He needs to go and rob a bank to pay for his daughter's cancer, that is like, you know, a bad guy in a Spider-Man comic book that is like a sympathetic a bad guy you sympathize with, right? Yeah. Like honestly, McGorgan, yeah, but in one of the storylines of McGorgan in Spider-Man tacitly, his daughter has not cancer, but has cancer, basically chronic terminal illness, right? So he becomes the Scorpion, so he can rob banks, so he can pay for his daughter's medical bills, right? Isn't that the same thing that Sandman does in Spider-Man 3? So they have the same kind of, you know, bad guy that has to be a bad guy to pay for his sick daughter. Yeah, they've done it more than one Spider-Man. But you know what I mean? It's still a crime. And you can argue from a moralist standpoint that Mark is right or whatever. But it's not an argument in a legal battle, right? It's never gonna be a defense against a company like Toei to say that, oh, but he has like a sick daughter. It's like, yeah, but how is that an argument if he is right or wrong in a legal proceeding? You know what I mean? It's not an argument. I know people are gonna say, oh, you're too harsh, too mean, or whatever, right? But that kind of reasoning that I see people doing in here much of the night today, and whatever, so on YouTube and so on, it doesn't make any sense from a legal standpoint. And maybe it's the harshest thing to hear that whatever you have cancer or whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, and I know people hate me. It's like, oh, you're so mean. But come on, you have to look at it from like an actual, you know, legal standpoint. Does that matter, the legality of it? No, it doesn't. Why would that matter in a legal standpoint? Why would it matter if you have a sick child? Right? It only matters in the sense that the only thing you can argue for in duress and emotional duress is something happening to you when it's happening. So, for example, if Morgan is out shopping with his sick daughter, right, and someone comes up and attacks them, and you know, self-defense, right, then you can argue that he's protecting his daughter, right, and sick. That's the defense, right? Because then you have the immediate threat to your family and so on, right? So if he gets more emotional and maybe uses too much violence, right, again for his self-defense, you could argue that he was protecting his child, right? So that's a defense of actually in like emotional. So an emotional turmoil can be used in a legal defense, right, if it actually has bearing on what you did, right? But doing like YouTube videos that you did like a few years ago and saying that, oh, but I have like a sick daughter or whatever, right? I mean, I haven't said it, but that's the point, right? That doesn't make any sense. Like, you can't argue and say he made a video 5 years ago talking about Dragon Ball, but now 5 years later he has a daughter or son or whatever. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. That is completely illogical from any kind of business or legal standpoint, right? Yet I see this comment all the time, so no people can get angry at me for saying that, but it really is probably the weakest defense you can have, right? Saying that, but he is sick or whatever, or he has a family to care for. That's purely an emotional, an emotional compliance that is going to have zero value for either YouTube or Toei, right? Because why would it be? Why would it be? Don't waste your time writing these kind of things, I would say. Now people can get really angry, but I mean, I'm not gonna remove any comments, right? You're more than allowed to say whatever you want, of course. I'm not gonna remove comments. It's freedom of speech. I'm gonna say whatever I want, right? I'm just saying that it's not an actual argument. You can write it if you want to, but the validity of that kind of comment has zero value because it doesn't matter for the company. Why would it be, right? And it's also kind of in the sense that why would you argue like that against a company? That's a problem too, right, with the video too. Don't come up to Toei and say, I have a family, so you have to give me money, you know what I mean? No company is ever going to respect that, right? It makes you look weaker, right? If anything, it's from like a strategic standpoint, if I was working at Toei, I'll be, oh, so you have a family that I can, I would be like, oh, so you have weaknesses. How good, you know? Again, prepare to go to war, right? Talking about your family, that gives you like Patreon subscribers, right? So it has a value from a monetary value because it gives you sympathy subscribers. Let's be honest here. So in that sense, it's a good strategy. But from a court standpoint, it's a horrible strategy because then Toei knows, oh, we can take the time, we can do this thing right, it's gonna hurt his family, his business right. It just makes you have more of a weakness. It's better from the YouTube, Patreon, social media sympathy, right? But it's worse from any kind of legal standpoint to talking about your family and your exposing you to weakness, right? It makes your legal case even weaker, and not just by the legal itself, but it makes you have, again, weaknesses, right, in your general, life or whatever, which you should never tell your enemy. Look as strong as you can to your enemy, or of course, look weak so they underestimate you. It's also a strategy itself, but it's a difference on why you want to look weak. You know what I mean? For example, telling that if you have, let's say you have a very high education, you're very educated, pretending to be having no education, so people underestimate you. That could be an advantage, right? But saying that, my life is so bad, and these are all my weak spots. Yeah, this is all my red. You play a video game. This is all my the blinking red thing. This is my weak spots. Attack me, please. That is also not good, and it also has no bearing on actual legality, right? What is right or wrong or something. So that's one thing that I see here on me, and I see, more the videos. Doesn't make much sense. Yeah, my videos are too long. These are even longer. I talk too much, right? But it's like a lecture standpoint. The whole idea of you have to respect, he shouldn't respect them, that's completely wrong. I see it here, I see it in the comments, I see it from my own self. But I'm gonna address it. But I can say that's the last point again. That doesn't matter. I will address it, of course, again in the video, but it's like, how to win a war, right? You have to respect your enemies so you can defeat the enemy. You don't underestimate your enemy, what I mean, sort of what. And that's the whole thing of that. Oh, but they attacked him first, so he should be not. He shouldn't be nice to them. It doesn't matter. You have to understand what you're dealing with. You can't just attack them in a way that they won't respond to. Right? If you want to win, as I wrote in a comment replying back to that, it's like you exist in the world. You are a part of a grander construction, right? Was supposed to say that one again? No, but it's like everything is a part of a grander part, right? Everything you are in the world, like I'm sitting here right now in this house, right? And this house is me and other individuals, right, in this house. We are part of this house, right? This house is part of this whatever district, right, or this like neighborhood, and the district and so on. And this is part of a country, and this is part of the planet, and so on. You're always part of something else. You don't exist in a vacuum. You don't exist in a nothing thing. You exist with everything. If I throw this thing here, you hit a wall, right? If I throw it hard enough, it's gonna fly through the wall and kill someone else. You know what I mean? If I could throw this infinite power, I could throw it and make it fly through the wall and kill someone over there, right there. You don't exist in like in a vacuum state of nothingness. Your state as a human is a state around other humans, right? And around other systems, right? And I already talked about, of course, tournament and so on. But these kind of comments, which are kind of half as racist, right? We can attack the Japanese, so on. But not only that. But the whole idea that, but I said the last point here, the whole idea that he shouldn't be nice to them because they're bad to him, doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, but it doesn't, right? So I'm messing it doesn't make any sense. Because that is kind of the whole idea of, if you go an eye for an eye, everyone becomes blind, right? It's like the whole idea of turn your cheek and so on. No, but it's like, generally speaking, that's not a strategy. Just because someone is mean to you doesn't give you the right to be mean back, right? It's like, just because someone robbed you, you can't rob your neighbor, right? It's kind of like that kind of logical concept of someone did this to me, so I can do it to someone else. Someone victimized me, now I'm gonna victimize someone else. That is terrible, right? And in this situation here, sure, you can argue that they victimized me, I'm victimizing them back. However, though, in the big difference in a legal sense is that they, of course, went through the YouTube system, which is fine, so they didn't actually do anything wrong in the actual business as I talked earlier, but also from a defensible moral standpoint, there was a case I read recently in the US about the thing. But for example, if this person is trying to rob you, right, and you use self-defense, right, that's fine, and you're gonna win, most likely, get self-defense, right, that's fine. But if someone robs you, and then they run away with your dollars, they run away they take your wallet, they take your wallet and they leave, right, yeah. If you then, the next week, right, you figure out where they live, and then you go and kill them, you know what I mean? You take justice in your own hands, right? That's a crime. See the difference there? If you defend yourself while it's happening, or if you go out for revenge, right, even if they took your wallet, that's a crime, right? You can't take the laws in your own hands. And in this case, of course, it's more tricky than the situation that he killed them or whatever, right? But the whole concept of they attacked first blood, so I'm taking blood back, doesn't really apply to business, right? That's not how business works. They send him a claim, he has the right then to send a counterclaim. So send the counterclaim. He doesn't have the right to attack them in this sense, right? I mean, it's not really, it might be illegal, you know what I mean? It might be illegal. He might have the right to attack them like this, but it also might be liable. It might be defamation. Yeah, it might not be legally true. And of course, what is it? Maybe the third video appeared is because maybe he was like, you know, shit, someone sent him a really angry mail right from Toei, he took it down. Perhaps, right? I don't think so yet, though, but maybe. You don't have the right to go and kill someone because they attacked you a week ago. You know what I mean? You don't have the right to do that. If you're doing it while it's happening, it's offensive. In his case, again, then they didn't attack him. They followed business rules, right? Is those rules good in YouTube? No, they aren't. I talked about a video. They aren't good in the video. They aren't good. But they did that. Your path is to use system and go back at them, right? By counterclaiming, disputing, clarification. If that doesn't work, then you could do this video, right? As I said yesterday, this video is a last resort, right? You can't do it yet before you got into that part. And even if you got into the counter notification part, you shouldn't do it anyway, because you're gonna weaken your legal case, right? So you can only do it as a very last resort after if he did counter notification and that failed, that he still didn't get like his videos back, then this could have been the recourse, right? But it has to probably go to court. But that could have been the recourse, right? But doing it way before you're actually at that line, I think that's kind of the issue too. Probably, I said my last point there, but also probably an issue with this whole context here, that people act like they went and, you know, killed his family, right? And how he's killing the family back. But it isn't true at all. And I know people will say that I'm wrong here because 150 claims, but there's no strikes there. So even if it's a huge amount of claims, they haven't taught him to court yet. They haven't told him, given him a takedown yet. Right? So it's not really true. This is more like you have a castle, right? And the enemies are outside the door, sending you like, something to catapult the trebucheting your castle walls, right? That's kind of what Toei is doing at Warsaw. They're kind of attacking his castle walls. But this castle has like 2 walls, and then it has the actual castle, 2 line of walls. Think about, you know, imagine it's like Titan, right? Then there are 3 walls, right? The wall, Rosia, yeah, those 3 walls, right? The Titans of Toei are at the first wall. They're breaking the first wall, right? They haven't gotten to the second wall yet, or the third wall yet. Mark is still fine, to speak, in a legal sense, sitting at the royal palace, right, in the third wall, right? So they haven't even gotten to the rumbling yet, you know what I mean? But people are acting like they rumbled him, yeah, but they didn't. They kind of started attacking the first wall, and his legal course of actions is to send out his scouts, right, to fight the Titans at the first wall. And, you know, and then if they break that wall, shit's gonna get worse, right? But that's the situation he's in. They haven't actually gotten to the third wall yet. So that's why it makes much sense either to act so aggressively towards Toei, even though they removed 150 videos, and I know it really sucks, and I stand and empathize with that. They haven't really gotten to an actual legal battle yet, because they haven't actually sent him a takedown. So him then jumping the sharpest, he's like jumping. He's basically, if I spoiler take that morning, it's kind of like you're sitting there in paradise, right? As Aaron, you're like, mommy! So you're sitting Aaron, and you're paradising, you know, it's not time yet. And then you're like, you know what? I heard about those Morlets. Let's kill those Morlets, right? You can attack the Morlets before Titan arrives. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like you're sitting in paradise, and before the Morlets sent you any Titans, you attack them anyway. Yeah, like before they attack you. But they're preparing to. It's kind of like that, but yeah. Or the Titans started coming, but you take them immediately. That's kind of the level he is on. He's going to war too fast, right? So that kind of logic doesn't comply here, because he took it too far immediately. Even if you can argue he's morally correct or whatever, which I suppose he is, yeah, he took that battle way too fast, and that's of course I comment yesterday a lot on. Contact the legal aid, do all stuff and so on. But yeah, he went with that. He went on that thing way too fast. They haven't done an attack yet. They haven't even done a takedown yet. They haven't even done a strike yet. So you can't argue for that. It doesn't comply in a business sense. They're just following YouTube rules. YouTube rules sucks though. The YouTube rules are horrible, but you know, they're still following YouTube rules. They haven't actually broken anything else. So you can't just go at them like that and saying that they did. That's you know, not really true either, right? It's not really the same thing though. It's not like he's not lying saying that they didn't claim him. I'm just saying that people are defending him, saying that they went for his throat, but they actually didn't. If they gave him 150 strikes, they would have went for his throat. They kind of cut him in his arm. They kind of cut his arm. They didn't cut the throat yet. They haven't even gotten that yet. But he's act, so that's why I also find it's like a little bit of a misunderstanding, a little bit of the kind of contextual lacking here. People haven't, from a business standpoint, right? Again, we are at this level, right? We're not this level. Yeah, business standpoint, they have a path to go up here, but he acts like they're here immediately. He kind of jumped up to this immediately. So he jumped here, right? Then that's kind of like, you don't do it to business. You have to go step by step, right? And especially in the Japanese culture, again, then you have to go like, very slowly, step by step. You can't go here and then jump to the throat immediately. People don't respect that. That's probably also a cultural difference here that I feel mostly people in America are a little more, to the throat. Yeah, they kind of cut the throat immediately. They kind of get in the tighten nape immediately. They kind of cut the neck immediately. Where it's like, but that's not really how we condone business here, right? Yeah. But honestly speaking, though, I think that it's not only I have to say my last word. People can be angry now, but my last word, I don't think it's actually necessarily even an American cultural thing, because it's more, honestly, I mean, my last point and people are pissed off now, but I think it's actually mostly a juvenile standpoint from it, honestly. It's a Japanese thing as well, but it's also somewhat of a juvenile standpoint on it, because if you actually do work with these, business transactions, right, big business corporations, so on, you know that this thing here, it goes like this, it goes super slow, it goes like this, right? It doesn't go like that. It never goes there. It goes like this, okay? It goes like this. It goes very, very slowly up at this trend. Doesn't matter if you're in Japan, America, or in Europe, whatever, in Africa. It goes super slow upward. You have to do all the right channels, right? And I think a lot of people mostly defending his actions and also being very angry against Japanese people and quite racist, some of them, are missing out just generally how you condone business. You can't do, again, this stuff in a normal business situation, even if it's not Japan. What he did wouldn't have worked against Microsoft or whatever either, right? It wouldn't Apple or whatever, that wouldn't be the right way to go against Apple either. They would have left you in court too. If you did it against any country that actually had more power in Ireland, he lives, I can't remember a good Irish company, Guinness, whatever, they would have gone much harder at the most immediate, right? It would still be the same issue. You would attack a company, expose yourself to a lot of issues, and weaken your own case, and the company would then go for your jugular immediately. They would be, now you want to fight, because you went immediately for the jugular, so they will fight you with immense power if they have to, instead of going through the company's points. So I think it's a mixture of the Japanese culture in a specific way, and people don't want to accept it outside of Japan, definitely. But I also have to say that I think it truly is also an issue on that a lot of people are acting like, but he's like he's a Spider-Man, and it's like unfortunately you're not grasping how a business works. You're not grasping how. I said yesterday in my other video, a reason why they can never fulfill his request is because they expense the request for them. They're not gonna spend millions of dollars on Mark. Who is Mark guy for that to spend money on? They're not gonna spend so much money on a person, on a YouTuber, or the YouTube as a whole, but especially as a one YouTuber. So that's what the request isn't feasible to do anyway, because the request is so absurd from their standpoint. They're absolutely never gonna do it, right? Because it's gonna cost them so much money to do all the legal fees to create this like loophole YouTube copywriting. Doesn't make any sense of request. I thought about it yesterday a lot. So they're never gonna do that, right? And that's also one of the things like. You can't just go for that request immediately. You have to go up and give them a request here. It's easier. Give them a trade, and then you have to move. You have to move the needle, right? And eventually you go for that request. It doesn't make any sense. It's super aggressive. That's your last, request. Right? You have to go up there. You can't just jump to that first immediately. No one does business like that. That's not how you do business. You have to go up the step after ladder. I understand people don't want to hear that. People want Mark to come in as a shonen main character. They want him to Goku them, right? They want him to do a Kamehameha and win, right? But in actual business, is how you do it. And now, if anything, that is also kind of weird, because if he had the power to Kamehameha them, he would just do it, right? He wouldn't have to do the video. He wouldn't have to do the video when he's begging for sympathy and so on. He wouldn't have to do a video when he's getting help from other YouTubers. He would just have done it, right? He would just have beaten them by himself, right? So either he lacks the power to defeat them, and then you have to do it in a proper manner, right? Or you have the power and you can defeat them, right? Either you can overpower them like a shonen main character, or you can't do it. You have to play by the rules to the extent that the rules favor you, right? And because he was at this level of the finger cutting, He jumped too fast there, and that completely broke his the measurement means, right? But that's what you guys think. That's the video. Much longer video yesterday. Side of it, like, you know, anime YouTubers, and I think a lot of people don't want to say anything because they have like 100 subscribers, 10 subscribers at the very tiny anime channels. They have very little power. They can't even do the whole content side thing and so on. Those people, I feel, are probably quite frustrated, right, as I mentioned, because this whole tournament arc that people are in, the tournament arc is very, very unfair. Some people are playing on hardcore mode, as I mentioned earlier, all the time, and some are playing on easy mode, right? And I would honestly say, right, that Mark has played on easy mode until this point, right? He was playing on easy mode, and now suddenly he's hardcore mode, right? And most people are playing on hard to medium all the time. So it's also kind of like, I think that thing will also make him lose, support, right, from actual YouTubers eventually. I think that he has the support now. It's so embracive and so on. But for the bigger support, for the bigger PewDiePie, whatever. But I think actually the smaller channels that doesn't have any kind of YouTube protected products and so on, they are probably, at least not, they are probably openly saying, oh, yeah, but that's one thing too. That doesn't mean that what happened to Mark is right or wrong or whatever. I'm not saying he deserves to get, haha, it's time for you to have hard mode, but I think it comes to that I mentioned earlier, that because anime YouTubers are so commonly playing on hard to medium mode, and he was playing on arguably that easy mode, right? It comes back to what I mentioned earlier, of course, that why wasn't he preparing to play on hard mode? How could he have a big YouTube channel in anime content? How can he have a big anime channel and he hasn't seen this issue that all the animation has, right? So I think that also is going to be a little bit of like a concern for him, because a lot of manga and anime reviewers and so on, right? They don't show any footage, right? And some of them are also popular in Japan, and because they feel more, in the Japanese culture, those people are more, respected because they only show in themselves. Okay, I'm gonna review the manga, just me talking. Here's my review, only me, right? Those people that are the big manga reviewers that are whatever, outside of Japan, but are big in Japan and only showing themselves, right? They're gonna inherently have more respect, right, by the Japanese people, right? So they're also probably gonna be a little bit of a disconnect there, where of course a lot of the anime, or a lot of the comments, from the Japanese people are saying, but why don't he just review it with his hands, right? Why don't he do it like that? Why doesn't he do it like that YouTuber? He's on himself. There's so many YouTubers, right, with One Piece or whatever, that only show themselves, yeah. So I think a lot of people, especially in Japan then, are gonna say that, but why is he showing so much footage? He can just show himself, right? He can show himself, and of course people can say what he's doing is fair use, this thing and so on, but it comes back to a disconnect, right, from what you always are saying, because while people and I understand people's anime fans on Mark and hate things, right? I understand that you think it's fair use or whatever and all that good stuff, right? And that's fine and dandy, but from a Japanese cultural standpoint, it's not fair use, right? And so you have to accept that. In Japan, they don't respect that kind of idea, right? They don't respect that he's showing it. So in Japan, a YouTuber that is doing, like a manga review without any footage is more respected by the average Japanese person than the person that is doing it with footage, like Mark is doing heavily, right? So they are gonna say immediately, why don't you do like X that I like? I like this manga reviewer here. He's only doing without manga images and anime. Do it like him, right? That's also gonna be a huge thing. And I have to say it's a last point here, because this is how I do stuff, right? I reflect, I lecture, I reflect, and so on. I do my lecture. Because earlier I mentioned that he has to do some kind of trade with Toei. He has to present a case where he's offering them something, right, to want to help him. That's how it works. You can't just do it for free, right? Business has to cost something. And earlier I said that one way to appease Japanese culture is say, I will remove the monetization, right? But he can't do that, because obviously then he has no money and he wants the Okane, right? So he wants the Okane, he wants the Kane, he wants the gold, he wants the Okane. What if he said this thing? This is with my last word, because I thought about it earlier, but I say it now, yeah. What if he asked them to say, hello, appaling, and so on, I promise that if you let me have my videos back, and this stuff and so on, I'm gonna remove, all the footage, right? Or at least, this can be hard to maybe retry, I know YouTube works, but I'm saying that, what if he had promised in his video, apologize, that further on now, when I'm gonna do YouTube stuff, right, I'm only gonna show myself talking, right? I'm gonna keep reviewing One Piece, Dragon Ball, and so on, right? If you all love and dear, but I promise you guys that in the future, I'm only gonna show myself. I mean, of course, he doesn't want to do that promise because he knows he's gonna lose a lot of subscribers, right? And a lot of people are not looking at his videos because he can't keep their attention, right, without the clips or whatever. Obviously, I understand that. But I'm just saying that also could have been, when I think about it, that actually could have been the reasonable trade, right? To have Toei help him. You would promise to be allowed to do like the most manga reviewers or whatever, right? You just talk about himself, yeah. But it's the expected, behavior of Japan, right? If you would have done that, that also probably would have appeased them, right? That could have been the easiest appeasing of them for the Japanese culture. Again, of course, I'm not saying that he should have done that. I'm saying I believe in fair use, right? I believe in fair use. I believe in but I'm just saying that would have been a way, right, to kind of connect and talk to the Japanese audience. But instead, he's like, do what I want, or F you, yeah. It's like, he didn't give them anything. He didn't give them any meat on the bone. And I think that actually is a very good point, that he could have maybe, in extreme scenario, got his videos back, right, from Toei, and then promised to never do that kind of videos again. That could have been maybe something they could agree to, right? It's like against fair use or whatever. But I'm just saying here, I'm just trying to reason out a business proposition, right? Okay, you want to have business with me. What can you offer me that I want to help you? Because if I have all the power, I'm Toei, I have all the power. Why would I help you, right? Why would I help you if you only gonna threaten me? Why would I help you? What can you offer me that I want, right? Yeah, that if you could agree to never show the footage, that is something I want, right? That is something I want. So then maybe everyone could just do that. I don't know. But I'm just saying, it's my last point here. I'm thinking about that. He had to make that video. You can't jump from here to here, and you need to make some kind of trade, right? As I mentioned earlier, that's also a possible trade. It's not a good trade. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's a possible trade, right? It's one of these things he should have figured out before he made the video. Because I'm not saying it's a good solution for him, because obviously he's going to have way less views and so on. But I'm just saying it's a possible solution. You have to at least give them something to go on. You can't just, you have to say that. That actually, I guess that's the last thing I want kind of bubbled up here. He could have made it more vague. He could have said that if I get my videos back, I promise to maybe do this thing or this thing. We can work something out, I can do this thing. Maybe I can do the monetization. Maybe we can, yeah. That is something, in a business sense, right? You have to offer them something. So he could have said, I'm not promising to do either of these things, but these are some of the possibilities we can discuss, right? Something like that, yeah. Here's our different options that I would like us to come to terms with. And maybe we could have an understanding if these terms are met, or if I do X, you can do Y, or I can do A, you can do B, and so on. Yeah. Let's meet somewhere in the middle. Here are some of the options that I offer you as an amends, right, to have a deal. Something like that, yeah. But he completely ignored that and just went for, I hate you, give me what I want. But think about it, that's very true. He also could have offered to stop using footage. I think that have been very, that would have been seen as very much more respectful, right, in a Japanese context. Even though it's fair use, but you have to understand, I'm not talking about fair use, I'm talking about how to make a deal, right? This is like, I think people have to also separate the discussion here with Mark about what is fair use, but also what is a good business strategy. This video here is mostly about the halo effect, how people are perceiving reality, right? And also, what is a good strategy? What is a snake man? Talking about the guy that I sued and so on. Like, what is a strategy? Okay, how did I sue him? Well, I knew he was gonna betray me, so I took evidence. You know what I mean? I recorded evidence. I collected evidence, right? How did I win in court? I did this thing. You know what I mean? You have to actually prepare your case, right? So this video is mostly about the art of war, right? Yeah, the halo effect and the art of war. And I think that's probably, I guess, my main point here when I'm thinking about it in the general sense. I was talking about people's perception, right? Culture, perception, the halo effect, perception of reality, right? And also then how the art of war. How do you win something? Yeah, and that's probably my biggest critique that I guess the market is supposed to think about it. That it's all over the place how to actually win here. Right? The second video is bizarre because it doesn't make you win, it makes you lose. It's like a self seppuku, right? It's like a seppuku, legal seppuku. And the third video is also like a seppuku again, because you have this grandstand. Because in second video you basically say we are fighting, right, and then you immediately run away. Yeah, you leave the court. Second video you're like let's fight. You jump up and you my katana, and then immediately you run away, right? And people say yeah, but anxiety and this stuff and so on. But of course from a legal standpoint and again from a strategic aspect, right, that makes you look. It makes you terrible, right? Because I saw a lot of comments on Twitter saying that, are you suing you? What's happening? This seems very fake. Like, what happened to you? You know, and I think the word I'm looking for there is grandstanding. You were grandstanding in the second video, in a sense, right? And then the third video, you're completely removing that. You're like, that never happened, yeah, and it wasn't right. And then, of course, the combination of that is like, what is your strategy, right? What is your strategy to win? How do you do business, and what is your plan, right? And of course, I mentioned earlier again, but I just iterate here to summarize the video, right? I think it comes back to what I said earlier too, which is like, why is he jumping up and down of having the video either privated or unlisted or whatever, right? Yeah. You don't have, where's the strategy? Like, where's the strategy? You have to, if you can't do the strategy, hire that business aid or a legal aid, but in this case, more a business aid than legal aid. Hire a strategy, business strategy. That's what I work with. Hire me. No, but my point, of course, is that that's what I said earlier, when I do this kind of videos, it's very much like what I work with in real life, right? A business strategy is a large part of what I work with, and this is like, that's basically I think my main point I work with. And it's like, yeah, like where is the business strategy, right? Where is the art of war where is the art of war here? It's completely lacking. You haven't decided what to do with the first second video before the third video. That's not a clear strategy. You haven't thought about the script, you haven't thought about the Japanese culture, you haven't thought about other culture, you haven't thought about how other YouTubers actually care about it, you haven't thought about YouTube, you haven't thought about the business, it's so much stuff that I have to summarize, say, yeah, where is the art of war? The complete lack of art of war, right? Is what I'm thinking. That's honestly what how I would summarize it, right? Very harsh. The more I get into the video, the harsher I got, right? No, but I feel like the more I think about it, the worse it gets. And I think that it also comes back to this general racism that I see, right, from people hating on Japanese people. It's not, of course, Japanese people's fault. That's what I mean. That's why it's so silly too, because if I attack Japan, right, and you blame them for the offensive, you know what I mean? Like, he's attacking Japan in a very weird way, so to speak. He's attacking them in like a really bad strategy. The people are blaming Japan or Japanese people, I mean, for not falling for it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like his strategy, and I want to be frank here. His strategy, again, and I've said many times yesterday too, is terrible. He has a terrible, terrible strategy. So it's not going to work. And then when this strategy failed, people are blaming the victim, the opponent, Japanese people, right, for not falling for the strategy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, again, back to that sport game, right? It's like they're playing a sport game. Mark has a terrible, terrible strategy. His players are terribly trained. They have a terrible sitting. And they're playing this game, right? And they get crushed by the opponent, which is not Toei, it's the Japanese country, right? Yeah, the Japanese people team. And they crush him completely because their strategy was way better. And they win. And then all the Mark supporters are like, they are cheating. They won by cheating or something. How? Yeah, but no. The issue is that Mark's team strategy was just really terrible. He did all the worst attacks, right? All his angles were terrible. He came from nowhere. Man, people hate me when I'm saying the truth here. But no, but like honestly, right? His strategy was really bad. He didn't address the legal. He weakened his legal case. He weakened legal case. You know my point about that. Yeah, weaker legal case, defamation, probably liability, and so on. All of those weird stuff, right? Completely ignorant Japanese culture. His video is, in the worst case, even racist, right? At least it's ignorant, cultural ignorance, and so on. And then you're blaming the other people for him losing. You know what I mean? You're angry. This is what I thought, the halo effect. You're angry that your Messiah lost when your Messiah had a terrible strategy. It's not the issue of him being a Messiah or not. It's the issue of that you expect the opponent to fall over and die on purpose. You know what I mean? You're expecting Japan to be like, you got me with your terrible attack. It's kind of like, You expect Mark to shoot them with a gun, miss them completely, but fall down anyway because you want to appease him, right? You know what I mean? And that really comes back to that my title of the video, Halo effect. That because you have this glory over Mark's face, that he's the hero, he's God, he's the Messiah, right? He's the Messiah. The opponent in this case then, the Japanese people, should just accept what he says. They should just accept his attacks. And I think the more I look at this video, I really watched the video a few times before this video here. If you ignore the threatening attacks of Toei, if you ignore the Toei thing, you ignore the general thing of, I'm gonna attack Toei, I'm gonna do this thing, ultimatum and so on. If you ignore that stuff, one of the weirdest line that is very, very arrogant and if you see the backlash we have seen since my first video between these 2 days, right? The whole idea of saying Japanese law is not world law, that is incredibly arrogant. That is very, very rude. Because you're talking like Toei or children. You're telling them like, you think Japanese law is world law? And that's kind of how you come across that. That's very insulting, because you're talking. Never talk to your opponent in art of war like they're idiots. Respect your opponent. This is actually a general strategy here. If you play any sport game or war or whatever, right, you have to respect your opponent, right? If you're gonna go in and play a game against your opponent in a game, say for example Street Fighter, okay, or with a Guilty Gear, I have to expect my opponent to be intelligent enough to dodge. You know what I mean? So I can't just be like, I'm just gonna play slow. I'm just gonna attack you with my weapon like this. Okay, it's forever, because you're gonna die right now. I have to jump up and do a slide thing, I have to throw on the ground, I have to throw from the back, I have to jump over you and do like a wall swap, I have to do a box swap, I have to do this trick thing, I have to feint, I have to jump up and do a double jump and do this thing, I'm doing all this spacing, jumping with Axel Loeb, because he's a ranged character, right? And doing different attack angles with his switcher, because I know if I just do this thing, you're just gonna block that, right? Or if you play like something like Kikiska, if I do this attack at you, you should have slide under it. It's gonna come under my arm and hit me in the leg, right? So I can't just do this shit. I have to do the cutting on the ground, I have to do my throw, I have to do my jump thing, right? I have to do different variety attacks, because I expect my opponent to not be a complete moron, right? That's kind of the honest fact here. I expect my opponent to actually be able to play the game. Now, of course, I played the game as a match on the highest Grandmaster League of that game, so I expect all my opponents, because they're all like level 100, they're all like level 75 plus 100, right? And they all have played the game for like 50,000 hours, whatever, yeah. I expect all my opponents to basically be, professional, like, Japanese players, basically, right? Honestly. That in my head, I go into a Guilty Gear game, when I play on ladder, and I expect my opponent to play like we are evil. You know what I mean? Because I am playing at the highest, it's very braggy, but I'm just trying from a mental standpoint here. I don't want to brag about I'm so good at the game. I'm saying from a mental standpoint, right? I am entering an internet game against someone just like me that are in the highest rank you can be in the game, and it's probably one of the highest ranked player in their country. If I meet someone from, let's say, Greece, okay, if I meet like a soul bad guy that's playing in Greece on like floor 10 high rank guy, he's probably literally the best player in that country as soul bad guy. Doesn't mean he's the best soul bad guy in the world, but he's probably seriously the best soul bad guy of that country. If it's in Japan, okay, they have a lot of players, right? And in France and so on, so it's different in America. But if it's playing from like a smaller country, like, if from Greek, Ireland, like Mark and so on, I seriously expect them to be their country's one of the best players. And that's usually how it is in fighting games, because like I'm from Sweden, right? So when I used to play a lot of Blast Blue back in the days, I was the best player in Sweden in Arakune, and basically all of Europe, and I played tournaments and so on. And I knew all the other best players, right? Because if you're one of the best players in the country, and you're the highest ranked Arakune in Europe and so on, you hang out with the other best European players, right? You go to the club and play and so on, yeah. So basically, all the other like 4 or 5 best players in the country, because you all hang out in real life, basically. It's kind of how it is, yeah, because you have so few people to actually fight with on that level, right? So your friends became the other top-ranked players, right? So if you face someone, if you enter like a Guilty Gear or whatever, in an incredibly high-ranked PvP game, right, on the ladder, you expect the other guys to have the same life as you have. That you play this game, and when you play offline, you play with your friends, and your friends are gonna be the best players, right? Like for example, when I played Street Fighter last tournament, I played Street Fighter. I was playing against the best player in Sweden. He's playing for a few times, I met him in a tournament, and we immediately were, oh, let's hang out afterwards, you know what I mean? Because he's like, well, you're the best ed player in the country. I need to practice my ed right. He was like, I need a better ed player. I know some ed guys, but you're the highest ranked ed player. I had just moved to this Stockholm for that moment. He was like, it's great, man, because I need an ed player. I need an ed guy that can, you know, play on my level, right? Come and play with me, you know, with my crew, right, you know? So he immediately invites me, right, to come and play with him because he needs to have that, you know, the best offline ed, right, in the country, basically, right? With me, then, of course. But, you know, kind of, yeah. And the same, so, again, my mind is that if I go into a battle with you, I am assuming the best from you, right? I am assuming that I know exactly what I'm going to do. I assume I have to attack you from all different angles, right, in a proper way, so you can't block and so on. Right? I have to do a throw, I have to, Axelo has a range throw, I have to win a range throw, I have to trick you, I have to feint you. He can cancel his throw attack. I have to cancel shit, right? I have to double jump sometimes to trick you in my timing. Sometimes I will double jump and do actual bombers. So I can delay my fall down, so I trick you on my landing timing and so on. Right? All that shit I have to do because you were also playing like me, right? You're also going to that club. You're friends with the best player you can to, right? You know what I mean? I expect you to have the same level as I am playing at, so I have to treat you like you were a good player like me, right? So I think actually when I think about it, almost the most insulting comment, very anti-Japanese, is telling people that Japanese law isn't world law. It's super insulting because Toei knows that. Japanese people they aren't stupid. They don't think that their law is the whole world. You know what I mean? It's a very insulting comment because you're treating your opponent as children, right? And that's why you're losing the war because you are overly underestimating your opponents. You're treating them like they're babies, right? Which the opposite is very insulting, but it also makes you lose the war because if they have an actual war, they would overcome you easily probably because you will underestimate them, right? So they will, win. That's why, for example, I always argue that Doflamingo is the best character in one because he doesn't underestimate Luffy, right? My argument is always that Doflamingo is the best bad guy because he never underestimated Luffy. He had plan B, plan C, plan D. That guy had so much anti-plot armor. He had so many steps prepared to beat the Straw Hats. Spoilers, and he lost because they got in there cheating, right? Yeah. But anyway, that was a good bad guy. But he had so many strategies if they were gonna fail, right? And yeah, saying that acting like Japanese people wouldn't understand that Japan isn't the world is really insulting. It's probably actually, in a way, the most insulting comment of it. It's such a weird comment to say, really. But I think it speaks the most to the whole, I am not prepared to go to war because I am underestimating my opponents and I am not thinking about how do I win this war. I think that's a perfect example of how to absolutely lose from, do a self-goal, yeah. Shoot your own foot, right, instead of trying to win. But anyway, guys, that's the video. Very long video. Do you like it? Subscribe, slap another. I don't really care about honesty. No one's gonna come in this far anyway. If you got this far, I'm proud of you. As I mentioned earlier, I like to do lectures, right? I usually get paid for this stuff, so it's actually kind of funny. Also, maybe maybe that's why I never do videos on this channel, because it feels kind of funny to me. Because usually, this is a stupid last point to add. I want to brag here, right? But 2 weeks ago, I was at a conference, right? And I have to do this speech. Very similar to this speech. It was about human behavior, different cultures, different countries, and I explaining, I explained basically how do you communicate with a given person? Like how do you analyze who they are, or if they're extrovert, introvert? How do you analyze their body language, and stuff, right? And then how do you effectively communicate with them, right? So you can communicate with every person, right? And doing a kind of lecture on a conference, they pay me, like a month's salary for like another day, right? Kinda, not really, but kinda. So it's a little funny that's what I want to do with videos, because I'm like, man, where's my pay, man? YouTube better send me all that money, It's kind of like, this is my trade secrets, I have a PowerPoint usually. I have a PowerPoint when I do it though, so it's better. But that's a little way. Usually when I do this stuff, I guess I am an extrovert too, so it is more fun to do it in a lecture though. It is more fun to do it like I'm talking to, a group of people and I'm discussing it with, and people can say questions. It's more fun to. Of course, you can do a live stream of doing it on YouTube or whatever, or on your Twitch or whatever. Of course you can, but it still is a little difference it is much more fun to do it like, and you have like 50 people asking you questions and so you have all these questions there, and you have this the dynamic and so on. But yeah, this felt like I'm giving you a work day here. I'm giving you what I typically would do with that work. Tomorrow I'm gonna work for 8 hours roughly, probably like 1 hour now, but you know what I mean. I'm gonna work for 8 hours tomorrow. I have this workshop for 2.5 hours, and I have like, it's Monday, it's like 4 or 5 meetings. Mondays are horrible, it's like 5 hours meeting. So, you know, this feels like my design workshop kind of thing, right? Honestly. And yeah, what do you guys think? You know, if you manage to get through my rant for 3.5 hours. See you guys and have a great day.